Welcome. My name is Dennis Saviano, and I will be serving as the moderator for tonight's electoral candidate debate. Our sponsor is the Journal and Topics. With us tonight from the Journal is the Associate Editor, Richard Mayer. The election will be held on April 1st. It is a consolidated election and includes 6 candidates running for 4 four-year seats on the Mount Prospect School District 57 Board of Education, 5 people running for 3 four-year seats on the Village of Mount Prospect Board of Trustees, and 2 candidates running for Village of Mount Prospect Mayor. However, I'll mention that some of the candidates are not in attendance tonight and may not have another person representing them. The school district debate will be about 45 minutes. The village trustees debate will be about 60 minutes, and the village mayor debate will be approximately 70 minutes. I'd like to just go through and review the format to be followed during the forum. Questions being asked at the forum were submitted by the public and the Journal in advance to avoid duplication. Candidates are only to answer the question being asked of them. Each person will be asked to give their opening remarks starting on my left side and proceeding to the right. Questions will be asked from left to right, moving down one person each time. Closing remarks will be given starting with my right and moving left. The closing remarks should begin somewhere between 6:35 and 6:40. Once everyone answers a particular question, there will be time for a rebuttal. We are allowing candidates to rebut any questions being discussed by raising their hands and waiting until I call their name. If I feel the rebuttal is becoming repetitive, I will use my discretion to move on to the next question. No questions will be allowed from the press or the public. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to make their opening remark, 90 seconds to respond to the question being asked, and 1 minute to make a closing statement. Our volunteer timekeeper, Josh Alon, now did I say that right? By the way, so I got to tell you, I'm only going to mention your first names because I guarantee if I didn't, I would screw up the last name. So please forgive me for that. Once the stop card, he's got his time card, show him your time card. Once the stop card has been raised, he'll do it at 20 seconds to let you know, and then at the end, it's going to be stop. That stop, finish your sentence, and keep it quiet from there. So we will begin with the introduction of the candidates running for Mount Prospect School District 57 Board of Education. So beginning with Jennifer, each candidate will now have 90 seconds to make an introductory position statement. Jennifer, please.
Good evening, and thank you to the Journal on Topics, our moderator, and the audience for being here. My name is Jennifer Choke, and I am honored to be a candidate for the District 57 School Board. Public education has been at the cornerstone of my life and also an imperative for any functioning society. When I was growing up, I moved 8 times before I was 10. I attended school in 4 different states, 4 different districts, and 6 different schools. I saw the power of community and what it felt like to belong in a classroom, and what it felt like to be forgotten. As a board member, I therefore keep students at the center of my decision-making to make sure that students feel seen, valued, and heard. I've also worked in education for 25 years, first as a teacher, then in the social-emotional learning space, and now as the manager of coaching and improvement. In each of these roles, I have seen the power of taking a student-centered approach and what collaboration looks like between stakeholders to lead to better outcome for students. I want to continue to serve on the board to help foster that type of collaboration in our community. As a parent, I have watched my 2 very different children navigate the public education system. We have lived in Mount Prospect for 20 years, and my children are both graduates of District 57. I have watched them foster positive connections with peers, allowing them to thrive, and I've seen them struggle when those connections are lacking. As a board member, I've been proud to advocate for an equity audit, a collaborative strategic plan, a portrait of a graduate, and just recently, student board members and the beginning plans. I was going to say, that did seem short. I was like, okay. And recently, the beginning of plans for our new Lincoln and full-day kindergarten. I hope to have your vote in order to build on the momentum of the past 4 years and build systems and learning environments where all students thrive.
Thank you, Jennifer. Sorry for the little confusion.
It's okay.
Raymond, please.
Good evening. My name is Ray Dorner, and I'm also running for District 57 school board member. Also want to thank the Journal and Topics and the moderator for hosting this event, giving us an opportunity to meet with and communicate to the public about each of us individually as candidates. I'm currently a proud parent of 2 current District 57 students. When we moved here into Mount Prospect about 5 years ago, we were, welcomed by neighbors and by the community, and I've been so impressed with our experience over the past 5 years with the wonderful teachers, staff, administrators that we have met in the district, and saw this as an opportunity for myself to run for the school board, to give back to the community that has been so welcoming to our family. In terms of experience, I have been working for approximately 25 years in recreation, both in nonprofit, municipal, and a local park district. I feel like that experience is going to be an excellent, or has laid a good foundation for me to be able to bring that experience to the school board, because there's a lot of similarities between public recreation and public education. And I think some of the most important work experiences that I've had that I could bring to the board are understanding the importance of community stakeholders and including community stakeholders and the community into the decision-making process, and most importantly, consensus building, strategic and master planning, and board development.
Thank you, Ray. Ronnie?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Ronnie Ganason. I was born and raised here in Mount Prospect, and I have come back after about 30 years in Chicago, about 4 years ago, and have 2 kids who are currently in Lions Park. I'm very fortunate to have been raised by an educator who served as a college professor at Northern Illinois for 35 plus years. And I am currently a pediatrician at Advocate Children's Hospital. I work primarily in the intensive care unit, and I also serve as the medical director for our pediatric and palliative care program. So as I mentioned, I was raised by an educator. Our home was consistently and relentlessly filled with educational principles and values. And the experience that I had growing up within that system was that there is an absolute integration between family, community, and education. And so as a board member, my hope is to continue that transparency, those open lines of communication, to continue to integrate community, business, families, and education as we continue to move into our generations of children. I'm really excited to be here today. I'm hoping to bring a different experience into the school board. I have vast experience with adult students and adult learners, and I'm excited to be here, and I hope to be a part of the board. So thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you, Ronnie. Eileen?
Thank you, Dennis, for moderating this debate. Thank you, Journal and Topics, for hosting the event, and thank you all for coming out to join us this evening. I am Eileen Kowalczyk, and I am running for re-election for the school board. I have lived in Mount Prospect for almost 25 years. My husband is a native. I have raised 5 kids here who have all gone through D57 schools. My youngest is currently an 8th grader at Lincoln, and my kids have all received an excellent education at District 57. I have been honored to serve on the school board for the past 12 years. I initially ran for the school board to learn more about how our system works, how the school board system works. I have learned so much in these past 12 years with regards to finance, curriculum, safety and security, contract negotiations, and most importantly, the education of our students. I am running again because I believe I bring experience from my years on the board. I am excited to see the next steps the district will be taking, especially with building a new Lincoln and a new addition at Westbrook and starting full-day kindergarten, to name just a few things.
Thank you, Eileen. Pamela?
Hello, thank you, Journal and Topics. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Timekeeper, and thank you, everyone who came out. My name is Pamela Nelson. I am running for re-election to the school board because I believe in public education. I know what it's done for my son, who is successful. He ended up at Harvard with a bachelor's and a master's in 4 years, cum laude, and 0 student loans. And I believe that's because of the foundation D57 gave him. I am a retired librarian with 47 years experience. I started out as a children's librarian and then became a manager and then a library director and then back at Mount Prospect Public Library as library development manager. I've worked with children throughout all of my years. I was the rank advancement chairman for Troop 154. I was part of Kiwanis for 10 years. I'm on the Mount Prospect Historical Society board, on the MPPL Foundation board, and also on a local condo board. I think that college is not every child's dream, but it is a pathway to success with D57, no matter what the dream is. And I'm hoping that you will vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. There is a sixth candidate who is not here tonight, Keith Sheffer. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. So just to mention that. Now the fun begins with questions. So we're going to start out. We're going to start with Jennifer, go left to right. Then we're going to go to Ray, Ronnie, etc. for answering the first. So with that, Jennifer, hopefully you're ready. First question. Some are concerned that so many Americans have a poor understanding of how our system of government works. Is there currently a requirement to teach civics in the district? If not, should there be? If so, what can be done to improve?
That's a great question. So as a former social studies teacher, I taught social studies for 15 years. I have to say that I think civics is very important. And I do know that in District 57, in middle school, and actually throughout, there are requirements to teach about systems of government, both at the state level and the federal level. My daughter was very proud of her Constitution test grade, right, and all the things. But that doesn't mean that that's enough. Right? We have to really learn what is happening at all the different levels of government, really understand your part in that, and really help kids to be able to think about how to take action in those spaces. One of the ideas that I have and that I'm excited to bring forward to the board is the idea of participatory budgeting, and the idea that kids come up with ideas that they can then vote on as a school and then have them actually happen. And I think there is a need to, give schools, like, even if it's a couple $1,000s, right, each year, for kids to actually vote on that and to see that come to fruition, because I think that starts to teach them civics. It starts to teach them how their voice matters and how they can actually make a difference moving forward. And so, yes, so there is a civics requirement now within the social studies curriculum, but I think it can still be enhanced.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'll mention that I'm not going to repeat the question, but if you need the question repeated, please feel free to ask me. I'd be happy to do that. So, Ray?
Thank you. Yes, agreeing with Jen, I know that there is a civics requirement in the school district right now, and I certainly support and want all our students to have, a good working understanding of civics, and when they're leaving District 57, they are knowledgeable about the way that government works at all levels, from local to state to federal. One particular thing that I was, really excited to see that the district just recently rolled out was having students become members of the school board. So having having a voice and participation on the school board. I think that's, a great opportunity for students to, have a voice in their district, what happens. And so I think any opportunity that the school district can have to, make sure that kids are getting a well-rounded education, and specifically in civics, is important and time well spent.
Thank you, Ray. Ronnie?
Such wonderful answers by Ray and Jen. It's kind of hard to follow, but I do agree with both of their remarks about and participation of kids even at this level. Our children are very smart, and they understand the politics that are happening around them and the superficial ways that government is working. And unfortunately, most of their exposures are just through media. And wouldn't it be a great opportunity for us to continue that education in a very objective, clean, and science-based way? Is our opportunity to teach them how to be a part of community, how to build community, what elections look like, what that means, what campaigning looks like. And so being able to fund programming in that way within District 57 would only be a service to them.
Thank you, Ronnie. Eileen?
As Ronnie said, everybody's has great answers, and you just can add on to that, which is, local, that, civics is part of their curriculum, but, to understand more local, state, federal, and the importance, especially of local-based elections, and how important that is to their education, that our local property taxes are what brings their education. The roles as citizens, as the power of their vote. I mean, those are so many things, and just to add on to, I really don't know how much to add on to what you guys have already said, so that's really my answer.
Thank you, Eileen. Pam?
Yes, everyone's given some great answers. As we look at what's happening around us at the federal level, I think that not only does District 57 teach civics and give a perspective of what it means in the environment around the student, but we're also tied to the State Board of Education, and the State Board of Education is tied to the Department of Education at the federal level, and we're seeing what's happening there. I think that we need to do more in terms of not just teaching, but in demonstrating and in showing and in taking current events and breaking it down at a student's level to explain what's going on, what should be going on, and what isn't going on, especially now, especially this year, especially the next several years. Civics is, I remember taking the Constitution test. I remember my son taking the Constitution test. The talk needs to be strengthened with social current events discussed.
Thank you, Pamela. Okay, yeah, I think everybody did. For the first question, you all did great there, so that was good to see. I don't think there's any rebuttals here. Am I correct with that? Okay, good. Ray, let's move on to our second question. With another referendum recently passed by voters for full-day kindergarten and a new Lincoln Middle School following the approved 2018 referendum to increase revenue for the district, will you ensure no further requests for more money from taxpayers in future years? And will you support the district not levying the maximum amount in its tax levy going forward annually to give residents some type of relief?
Yes, so obviously I'm aware of the referendum that just passed, as I'm sure many in the, if not all, the audience are. What I would say is that as a supporter of the referendum for that was just passed in November, I think it's important that we commit to supporting financially public education. I think it was the right thing to do for the district moving forward in trying to create schools and buildings in the school district that serve not only the students that are here now, but also for many generations to come. I think it's obviously important to always be fiscally responsible with the tax money that you are given as a school district, and you need to be good stewards of that money. But I think there obviously, I think it's difficult as a candidate to say anything definitively without having a crystal ball into the future of what will happen. And so I think it has been in my career in public recreation, understanding that it's important that you are given a limited budget and you need to work within the confines of that budget, but obviously you need to make sure that you are being flexible enough for things that you can't anticipate in the future.
Thank you, Ray. Ronnie?
Again, agreeing with so much of what Ray has shared, I think everybody's hope on this board is not to advocate for levies in the taxes coming up in referendums and their pushes to increase personal taxpayer revenue into the system. I think that that's a fair thing to say, that we hope that we don't have to do that. I look out into this crowd and I'm very aware that this community is built on so many different people with different socioeconomic backgrounds and commitments, and so many people have dedicated their lives to Mount Prospect over the last decades. And I think it is important for us to be great stewards of the funding and the budget that we have. Our hope, I think, as a collective is to continue to work within the limits of our budget and to make sure that our programming is considerate of that. And again, the integration of community and the district is that, our kids are really important. Their education is a primary focus and goal for all of us. And we also have to serve within our community members as well. So we can all hope and we can all work towards that goal of no more increases in taxes, and I hope that happens.
Thank you, Ronnie. Eileen?
Hi there. In regards to the second referendum, I would never have imagined at the start of this last term that I was in that we would ever have gone for a referendum, and only for the fact that the mandate for full-day kindergarten became a law is the reason behind us asking for this second referendum. I'm excited that we did it and we passed it, and I'm looking forward to what comes next with that. But like I said, I never would have expected that would have ever have come. So with that in mind, I can't imagine I wouldn't be supportive of another referendum, because if we haven't figured out how to ask for the money that we need, then we shouldn't be asking again. In regards to the levy, we levy every year in November, and we try to encompass any new construction that we can within that levy. And everything also depends on CPI and inflation. And one of the things we can try to do is with our business management to see if we cannot exceed that 5% ask, which is what our maximum ask can be, is 5%. So with that in mind, we can potentially not get up to that maximum levy. And a lot of the years we don't even get up to that maximum levy, because it all depends on CPI and what new construction is. And sometimes it's only 1-something%, sometimes it's 3%. So the county will only allow us a certain amount and not to exceed that 5%. But we can try to work with our business to not levy for that maximum.
Thank you, Eileen. Pamela?
That's a good question. I'm retired. I'm on a fixed income. I'm hearing that Social Security, as of yesterday and today, might be gouged. So I will be living on maybe half of what I make. I understand the necessity of the question that was asked, but I will say that District 57's budget is one of the lowest budgets in the surrounding districts. The referendum was needed because of the mandate, and while we were doing that, we recognized that Lincoln Middle School was 75 years old and was functionally obsolete, and presented an unsafe environment for our students, non-collaborative as well. I recognize that our business and operations director, Dr. Jason Kays, has gone out for numerous grants. He's been very successful. $19,000 for one, $50,000 for another. He's continually looking for grants. I know that we don't want to increase the levy beyond what the local situation allows for. We have to honor the law, but recognize too that there's a balance between educating children and paying for that education.
Thank you, Pamela. Jennifer?
First, I want to say how grateful we are to the community for how much you have shown your commitment to public education and to educating our young people in this community. So thank you for that. I think as we talked at the board table about this, the referendum and the levies and all of that, being good stewards of the money is always at the forefront of the conversation that we're having. And I think, we have done a lot to try and make that process very transparent as we think about what it looks like to go out for that money. So we have a Citizens Finance Committee, which has everything from, a former alumni student board member on there, right, to, all the community members, to administrators, to teachers. And, they come to us and they share what they are seeing for the future. We understand it. Our business manager does a fantastic job of bringing us a balanced budget. And we're in a district that is very, it's a tight community, right? Like you've got very little business that we're being able to pull from. And so we really do have to live within those limits, but also understand that, we're going to do the best we can to make sure that taxes don't go up. And we also know that we have to, as many of the other board members have said, levy for what we need so that the education is what we want it to be.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Okay, our third question, we'll begin with Ronnie. What is the best way to ensure quality, timeliness, and accountability of upcoming construction projects?
Connection and transparency and integration of our community members within the process. I think accountability comes with an acknowledgement that we're all working with significant constraints. I also think it's important to create an environment where we're talking about reasonable expectations and honesty. I think one of the worst things that we could do is set ourselves up for unreasonable expectations. And I think that if we continue to speak with our partners when we're talking about increasing our spaces for the all-day kindergarten, for the new building, for District 57 Lincoln Middle School, I think one of the best ways for us to continue to move forward is with transparency with the different construction companies that we're working with. I think that without reasonable expectations, and again, I kind of pull back on my own experience in healthcare, is that you just completely crumble into distrust without having reasonable expectations. And so my hope is, as a board member, that we continue to communicate with our contractors and our partners and be able to relay that really good information to the community to make sure that everybody is on the same page.
Thank you, Ronnie. Eileen?
Well, it's exciting, the upcoming construction that we have. We actually just had a meeting this past Monday at Lincoln in regards to preliminary kind of showings of renderings of what the school will look like, and then getting feedback from the community members. And the administration has been reaching out to especially neighbors of Lincoln and neighbors of Westbrook, and also with staff, community, parents, in regards to what are we all looking for? What do you think we can best use the space, the classrooms, everything that we need. So we're going out there and doing that, and they're getting the feedback from everybody. And then they are going to continue on with these meetings and updates with everything that goes along the way with how it's progressing. So I'm excited to see what's happening with that and how it progresses. And we, just staying on top, we have done a couple of construction things with 4 classrooms, both at Fairview and Lions Park. They were both very successful. They did it was a much smaller project, of course, and it was done over the summer months, but it was completed on time. And with this time frame, it's almost 2 years that they're going to have, from the fall of 25 to completion of these buildings for fall of 27. So I'm sure hopefully they better get it all done in time.
Thank you, Eileen. Pamela?
Thank you for the good question. I have decades of experience with library building projects, and I can tell you that staying on top of the construction is important, listening to what your contractors are telling you, being aware if there are tariffs on steel, like 50% or 25%. A majority of our building materials now comes from Canada. So we are starting this construction, not in a bubble, not in just Mount Prospect, but we are starting it in light of a whole different environment. One of the biggest costs in construction is change orders. So if your materials are no longer available, or if you have to make a cut based on not having skilled labor, that is going to increase your costs. As Eileen said and other people said, it's the construction process is very carefully monitored. Dr. Kays and Dr. Gore are working very closely with Papa Nicholas, and Nicholas Construction is working very closely with the contractors. They've been very successful with other building endeavors in the village, and I just want everyone to be alert to what is happening outside of Mount Prospect, because that may impact.
Thank you, Pamela. Jennifer?
So I often say that one of our biggest challenges over the next couple of years is also our biggest opportunity, right? And that is the building of Lincoln and the full-day kindergarten. And to your point, like, we do need to stay on top of this. And so there are really great dashboards already built into the website. If you haven't taken a look at them, please do. They go through all the different phases of the process, starting with the gathering of stakeholder feedback, right? Starting with really understanding what people wanted, and then really working with the architects, working with our construction people, working with all these different groups in order to really understand what's coming next. Jason has already, our business manager, has already started to give us updates. We bring in the bond people, we bring in the CFAC, right? Like, we bring in all of these people to make sure we have experts at the table, so we really do understand what is happening, where we're going, and are we on track to that question. And I think we all have lots of big hopes for these new spaces. And I think, right now we have a good team in place that's really working hard to make sure that this happens on time, right? That we get our new buildings open, and that we are ready to bring both of these to the community in 27, 28.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Ray?
Thank you, Dennis. I think in my experience, having been a part of a variety of different sort of capital projects up to including the, being a part of a team to construct, a $50 million recreation building, I think I would echo what Pam said about one of the biggest things that can kind of get you off schedule and off budget is change orders. And so I think certainly all the work that the district is doing right now to gather feedback from stakeholders, from students, staff, administration, the community, the neighbors, I think is so important to try to set up sort of a roadmap and a schedule such that you don't have to do change orders once you actually start the construction process, because that's when you're going to run into a lot of delays and also increased cost. I've been very impressed with the information that the district has made available through the construction websites, being in attendance at the meeting on Monday at Lincoln, getting to see some initial renderings, and hearing that the district, and I think the board and everyone is committed to continuing to get feedback and making sure that the construction projects are done correctly the first time.
Thank you, Ray.
Yep.
Okay, Eileen, you're going to be our next question. I'm going to ask, just because of the timing of everything, and we want to make sure everybody gets their closing remarks in and all that good stuff, that maybe we go to 60 seconds to answer the final two questions. Is that okay? Everybody? All right. Eileen, with the reported increase in bullying in the schools, what do you see as the board's role in addressing this in a consistent fashion?
I think a lot of it, it's building community within our schools, building community within our kids, our students. And they're starting it with, we've been doing things like that, like restorative justice, positive interventions. We have like a principal advisory committee. We have things in place that we're trying to get that connection between our students and the faculty and the staff within each of those schools. and to build up that community feeling where you're excited to go to school, you want to be at school. That is one key way of having that community feel for these kids to want to be good and want to do good.
Thank you, Eileen. Pamela?
Boy, I have a lot to say about that, and it starts with Maslow's theory of hierarchy for motivation. So one of the things that we have incorporated in our strategic planning is social emotional learning. From that incorporation, we've developed in strategic plans Portrait of a Graduate, where we talk about we want our students to become collaborative, resilient, critical thinking, empathetic, and adaptable. We have social justice in play, and Lincoln Middle School, I'm sorry, when my son was there, it was a junior high. Lincoln is doing a phenomenal job with positive behavior motivation, where teachers will catch children who are exhibiting great behavior, and the student will get a reward, get points, and then can trade it in for a reward. And we know.
Thank you, Pamela. If you want to just finish your sentence, I don't.
Thank you. And we know that positive motivation, up the Maslow's theory, punishment is the worst. Positive motivation, and then the student learns that working with others is the best way, and then work your way up to self-actualization, to doing it because you want to do it, not because you're being rewarded.
Thank you, Pamela. Jennifer?
So all learning is social and emotional. The Search Institute says that students who feel those developmental relationships are 8 times more likely to stick with tasks, enjoy hard work, and know that it's okay to make mistakes. And we know that in schools, a lot of students really need to find that connection with an adult and having that one trusted adult in the building. As many people have already mentioned, we do restorative practices at school, and we have psychologists on staff and social workers, right, and this comprehensive social emotional learning curriculum. Teachers have received training in social emotional learning, trauma-informed practices, and that importance of building those strong relationships. And this is an area where I still think we need to continue to work, right? We need to make sure we take that holistic view of students. We need to make sure that we understand how a student is doing academically, social, emotionally, and really have those tiered systems to be able to make sure that students understand what happened if something does happen, and how they can restore the harm that occurred in that situation.
Thank you, Jennifer. Ray?
Thank you. So I would say that, I think the board's responsibility is to ensure that the administration of the district and the staff and teachers are putting all these putting all these plans into practice and continue to do that on a day-to-day basis. I think, utilizing restorative justice practices to ensure that we are trying to use teachable moments to get kids to make different choices as opposed to perhaps negative choices that they've made. I think focusing on positive reinforcement programs within the schools, I think, is an excellent start. But as Jen mentioned, I think there's always continuous work to do to make sure that you are trying to address the all the needs of all the students.
Thank you, Ray. Ronnie?
In addition to all of the incredible programming that exists currently in District 57, including restorative justice, the different platforms of inclusion, I think it's really important to, again, emphasize the importance of inclusion of families. And coming from a space of curiosity, bullying is not something that kids learn to do because they want to do it. It comes from a vulnerable and insecure place. And my hope is that we continue to include families in the community in better understanding where the behaviors are coming from, because the educational experience is a continuum. It does not stop at school. It's also at home. And so the more we can include families and our community members in this type of programming, I think we're going to see huge changes. And I'm so grateful for the inclusion of parents currently within District 57 on simple little things. Kids see other kids' parents at special lunch or pizza day or PTO events or any other things. It makes a difference.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, Pamela, you will get our last question. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that the adoption of Parent Square and Pocket Talk has been a great ad for parents who speak a world language, because there's the ability for translation in there. There's a better avenue now for communication with parents, and I think that the board's role is to work with the superintendent. The superintendent is our only employee, and our superintendent is driven and aware of all of the great possibilities.
Thank you, Pamela. Do we have time for one more? Let's do our closing statement. So, I'll tell you what, Pamela, if it's all right, since we didn't get to ask you to be the first person to answer the question, could you start out with your closing remarks, please?
Thank you, everybody, for coming here. I appreciate your helping us pass the referendum. I hope that you vote for me, and I do hope that you stay aware of what's happening not only in Mount Prospect, but what's happening at the federal level, because there are some crucial things right now that are being discussed at the federal level, and we want a positive impact for our school district and our students. We'll be resilient, we'll be adaptive, but we're hoping that it's good outcomes and not bad outcomes for our students and our staff and our district. So thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Jennifer?
Thank you to the Journal and Topics, our moderator, the audience, and my fellow candidates for this conversation. The District 57 motto is inspiring every student every day to reach their full potential. And I hope that to have your vote on April 1st, in order to build on the momentum of trying to make that happen every single day, and over the past 4 years, to build the systems where students can really thrive, to build those learning systems, those learning environments where all students really can reach their full potential. In all my experiences, I've gained a wealth of knowledge in the current practices, implementation of education systems that lead to better outcomes for students. I'm running to really champion a strong public education system where students, educators, and the community feel informed about what is happening in the district and seen, valued, and heard in the decisions that are being made. So thank you so much for coming out tonight, and I really hope to have your vote on April 1st.
Thank you. Ray?
Thank you. First off, I want to thank my wife and family and the community for their support through this process. It's been an enjoyable experience and an opportunity to get out and serve the community. I wanted to thank the audience members, everybody who took time to come out today to become, informed voters, and those who are going to be watching this either televised or, after the fact. I think it's so important to, take the time to make sure that you understand who you're voting for and what you're voting for now more than ever. I think it's, I just appreciate the opportunity, and I humbly ask for everyone's vote on April 1st for the District 57 School Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Ronnie?
Thank you to the Journal, the moderator, all of the candidates here on the panel, all of you. Ray had thanked his family. I just have to thank my dad. He came to Mount Prospect almost 50 years ago, and he continues to support us in all the things that we do, and he is a very committed member of this community, and he and my mom are reasons why we came back so close, not to District 59, but to District 57. I am extraordinarily honored and humbled at the opportunity to run for school board. I hope to have the opportunity to serve all of you and all of our children in particular. I humbly ask for your vote, but I also am so confident that anyone you vote for on this panel will do right by your kids. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ronnie. Eileen?
Thank you all again for taking the time out to be here tonight. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Journal and Topics. I'm looking forward to the next 4 years for what the district will bring. The district unveiled a portrait of graduate, as we spoke earlier, with key points for our students to be collaborative, critical thinkers, resilient, empathetic, and adaptable when they leave District 57 and move on to high school. I am excited about our new student school board members who will be joining us at our next meeting on March 20th. I'm looking forward to our continued collaboration with 214 to make sure our students have a head start and are on the right track to succeed in high school. I'm excited that the district will be providing full-day kindergarten and starting the fall of 2027, and that we will have a new Lincoln for all our students to attend in their academic career at D57. People sometimes think a school board work is a thankless job, but I have never felt that way. I have always felt support from our community, and I am proud to be on the school board, and I would be honored to be on the board for another 4 years. So please, early voting starts March 17th, and Election Day is April 1st. Thank you all for coming out.
Well, thank all of you. A little tidbit, I was actually on the District 57 school board years ago. So I do know it's not thankless because you get a pride inside of what you're doing. But it is a lot of work, so thanks. Pamela?
Dennis, didn't you also help Mount Prospect Public Library with budgeting?
I did, yes.
Yes, and I was in one of your sessions, and it was awesome.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm still awesome, but thank you. So I appreciate it. I'm going to ask all of you now to ask you to exit the stage, and then we're going to ask the candidates running for Mount Prospect Village Trustee to step up. Thank you. Good job, all of you. So, as I was saying, we will now begin with the introduction of the candidates running for the Mount Prospect Village Trustee. To kind of go over those rules in case you weren't there, and we've made a slight change, which I think you're going to like. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statements. Then each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each of the questions that are being asked. And once everyone answers that particular question that's being asked, anyone can rebut that person and, get a discussion going if there's some disagreement there. So we hope to keep it going until we feel it's time to move on to the next question on the rebuttals. And with that, why don't we get started? I'd like to start with, again, I use first names, so Jack, if you would like to start with your opening remark, that would be great.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I want to thank the Journal for organizing this and putting everything together. My name is Jack Brogan, and I'm running as a write-in candidate for Village Trustee. I've been a resident of the Village of Mount Prospect for over 30 years. I'm 58 years old. I live in town with my wife and my 2 kids. My kids are 12 and 15. I worked for the Village of Mount Prospect for 30 years. I was a police officer. I retired 6 years ago. I was a police sergeant. I had a great career. When I first came here in 1988, I had a strange feeling about the village as where I was going to land and end up raising my family, and that's what ended up happening. In the very beginning of my police career, I was on the midnight shift, and I have a lot of friends that I grew up with that were in the construction trades. And pretty much from day one, I worked 2 full-time jobs for close to 30 years. I worked as a tile setter, and then in 2002, after my wife and I got married, we started building single-family homes. She is also a realtor, and that is my full-time job right now as a builder. And I am running for Village Trustee as a new voice. I have a lot of business experience. I have a lot of municipal experience. And I believe that sometimes a fresh voice is important, and that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Beth?
Hi, I'm Beth DePrima. I've lived in Mount Prospect since 1997. I was born and raised in Bloomington, Illinois. I earned 2 degrees from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, so if you ever see me walking around town, I'll be wearing lots of Illini gear all the time. I retired in May 2024 after spending 34 years teaching chemistry at Fremd High School in Palatine. I'm running for Village Trustee because I believe I can make a difference. I love Mount Prospect. I'm excited by the opportunity to be able to serve the community. As a former science teacher, I'm a problem solver and I'm data-driven. I have a very strong work ethic and I'm prepared to be a full-time trustee. I'm willing to spend lots of my own time doing my own research to build upon the information provided by village staff and make Mount Prospect even better. As a trustee, I want to be bold. I'm not afraid to tackle difficult issues even if they've been left unresolved for years. I want to be determined. I want to keep working a problem until a resolution is achieved. And I plan to be direct. I demand transparency in major initiatives. Stakeholders should always be consulted and encouraged to have input in any decisions that will potentially have a significant impact on their daily life or their business. I will push for important information to be easily available to the public. When a large project or a comprehensive plan is underway, the detailed plans and all the data gathered should be made easily accessible on the village website. A resident should not have to search for important details in the packet of a single board meeting. I will not be afraid to ask the tough questions or go against the majority opinion if it's for the good of the community. And even if I can't solve a problem or affect an outcome, I want to shed light on the problem and all the issues surrounding it. I hope to earn your vote as trustee in this election. Thanks.
Thank you, Beth. Terry?
Hi, thank everyone for coming. Thank you, Journal, for putting this on, and thank you, fellow candidates, for running. It's a lot of work. My name is Terry Gens. I currently am a trustee, and I have very much enjoyed serving you, and I love Mount Prospect. That's why I'm running again. I work at a large social service agency. My expertise is learning about social services, but I'm also a fundraiser. So I'm used to collaborating with different parts of organizations, businesses, individuals, and I enjoy solving problems. The challenges that face our residents today, I think, are pretty extreme. We have a high cost of inflation going on. We are in the midst of development, which is very exciting, but it also has to be financially packaged well so that it's sustainable. We have sustainability issues, challenges right now regarding our natural world, our ecosystem, which impact flooding, impact our nature, impact our tree city. So I'm running for several reasons. One is that I think my business and marketing skills are valuable as a board member to ensure that we follow the village's strategic plan, which is always available to residents on the transparency website, on the village website. I've raised my kids here in Mount Prospect. I have a boy and a girl. They are getting more sufficient, yay, as one is 20, one is 24, soon to be 25. And I volunteered with the Girl Scouts at my church and in several different areas. So I just hope you vote for me. And I also demand answers and do not vote along lines when, people just expect it of me. So thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Jeannie?
I'm Jeannie Lee Makatinge, a resident of Mount Prospect for the past 8 years. I am married with 4 children. They attend Euclid Elementary, River Trail Middle School, and 2 at John Hersey High School. I'm the co-owner of a small business located downtown Mount Prospect and a realtor. I spent the past 21 years actively volunteering in multiple organizations, shaping policies and procedures as a board member and a chair at T-Mobile's D&I committee. Currently, I'm on the Special Event Commission, on the board with the Downtown Merchants Association, on the board with the Euclid PTC, and chair the District 26 Parent Directory app. My approach would bring a fresh perspective, prioritizing the collective good of Mount Prospect. I have been recently endorsed by the Mount Prospect Firefighter Local 4119. They said that Jeannie demonstrates a strong commitment to the future of public safety, community, and the well-being of Mount Prospect. Please write me in, Jeannie Lee Makatinge, on April 1st, and early voting starts Monday, March 17th.
Thank you, Jeannie. I think the audience heard this before, but there's 5 people running for 3 4-year seats on the village trustees. The 5th candidate is an incumbent, John Matusik, who is not able. And sometimes people say, well, can I bring another person in? And it's not part of our rules. So with that, I'll go to the second one, which I've kind of mentioned already. And Richard was kind enough to say, maybe you mention it again. After you answer questions, okay, after everyone has answered a particular question, if there's a rebuttal, shoot your hand up and I'll call on you, okay? Good. So with that, I think we'll start with Beth. And the first question for Beth is, what is the best way to balance concerns about downtown congestion and the need for economic development?
Okay. Sorry, I never turned my mic off before. So downtown congestion has obviously been a problem for a long time. I have a 2013 report that I was looking at that they did, that we had certain parking lots that were maximally filled, at all times. It's important to have development, and I think, of course, the Capstone property is up right now. We had a whole discussion workshop on that yesterday, and I thought that the residents kind of came in with some excellent ideas in terms of what they thought, which is everybody realizes, the majority opinion was, we realize the need to have some tax revenue coming out of the new parcel at 111 East Bussey, which, like I said, will tie everything together. But everyone really loves green space, wants to have some of that worked in. So I think that property in itself will sort of be emblematic of how we can look at how a property feels, the aesthetics of it, have some green space, have some special moments, have a unique draw to the downtown that'll hopefully support the businesses we have right now, but we're going to have to deal with the parking and other things that can help alleviate the congestion as well. So I think that property is a microcosm of what we're going to want to do in the downtown to finish it off, sort of.
Thank you, Beth. Terry?
I was so excited last night when we had a full house here to talk about development of the Chase building lot. There were so many wonderful ideas, and I encourage people to think big, to dream big, before thinking about the fiscal ramifications of our economy and what this might cost. What about affordable housing? What about green space? What about retail? What about commercial? What about how that intersection brings people together at all of our events and things? And people really had wonderful ideas. And then people talked about traffic, and people talked about parking. So they talked about those challenges as well. Well, fortunately, we are not the first village to have to face these types of challenges. So number one, we can look at what other organizations, entities, villages have done with similar properties, a growing downtown, bustling economic development. We want to bring pedestrians, we want to bring bicyclists, and yet we want to be able to have our seniors to be able to pull up, have a place to park, and enjoy a dinner. So I suggest we take a look, use our development team to take a look at what other governments, villages are doing. We can redesign traffic. That can be part of the concept. It has to be a balanced concept and take all of these different pieces into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Jeannie?
Yes, so I'm in agreement with Terry. I think a lot of the points that she made with looking outside with the other villages that are, and see how they, that idea to save, to come up with a solution, something creative, something different. As the downtown area grows, I don't see the congestion becoming any less unless we do some planning with traffic and parking solutions with the new development that's going to be going up. So we might have to think creative outside the box and think of some ideas that other villages have done to alleviate that issue.
Thank you, Jeannie. Jack?
I watched last night's meeting. I wasn't able to attend. I actually watched it today. A lot of excellent ideas. I think that the only way that it works is if there's professional assistance given to the village to make it work. And what I would say by that is the previous Gray Star plan that was proposed a few years ago that fell apart, their plan was for 45-degree angle parking on Emerson, on Bussey Avenue, and then also on Maple. The parking problem right now is a problem. So whatever's going to be built over there, real deep thought needs to be taken with that property. I like the idea of bringing in somebody from the outside to assist the village staff, and also I would think making maybe a board to make that final decision, or to propose that decision as to what exactly should be built there. The other problem is, that was just mentioned, is affordable housing. A lot of people can't live here anymore, so I would be open to listen to that at that site as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I'm going to start again now with Terry. I think we did Beth last time. Or did you rebut? Or you have a rebuttal? A comment?
Sorry, I
Sure.
forgot to turn my.
No.
It's not so much a rebuttal, it's just sort of an added comment. I agree with what they were all saying. I was sort of just talking in general to answer your question, but I've been saying for some time that we need to hire an experienced independent planning consultant to help us. I don't know if that's the way the board is going right now or not. I'd sure like to convince them. But the thing that I think was cool last night that you all probably noticed was we had an engineer, we had an architect, we had a person with commercial space background and architecture. At a minimum, I think we might want to put together like an ad hoc committee of village experts, if you will, that could help us with this project. But I'm in agreement with a lot of what other people say. And as far as the affordable housing piece, it just seems like people are really interested in condos, even if that's not what the developers might want to do. Older people that might want to downsize and stay in Mount Prospect, but there aren't any places around here, in the downtown area that are
Thank you.
like that.
So it's interesting that you brought this alternative housing options up, because guess what? Not my second question, but my third question was going to be to ask you. And so we're going to switch it around. Terry, we're going to start with you. Should Mount Prospect invest in an initiative to create more affordable housing options?
I think I would have to know exactly what that initiative would be. We definitely need affordable housing, and affordable housing can be relative in conversations with people. Your idea of affordable housing may not be my idea, but there is a definition according to federal standards about, if you're paying, I think, more than 1/3 of your salary, of the median salary, then, you need affordable housing. So Mount Prospect actually has met the legal quota for having enough affordable housing. Now, it may not be where people think it should be or where people want it to be, but I also want to say that this is something that this board has been working very hard on. And in fact, these developments and these partnerships that you have to work with and collaborate with, again, get the financial underpinning and foundation together, has been successful, and we just opened affordable housing on Algonquin Avenue. And that is for seniors or others who are of a certain, age group and whatever. You'd have to look at the specifics, but it's beautiful. And if you go there, you will feel like there's a community rec room. They have a maintenance person there all the time, and the people are very friendly. We went to the open house. And again, this is a collaboration. You just don't wake up one day and go, oh, I want to have affordable housing. Well, where's it going to go? What developer is going to want to help, finance that project? Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Jeannie?
Yes. So the federal minimum is 10% and Mount Prospect's at 30% for affordable housing. So I was looking at the guidelines. So the 30% encompasses everything. So it's for seniors, for low income and disability. So if you look at just low income, it's actually a smaller percentage. So I was looking at what affordable housing was in the US, and the minimum people are making is $30 an hour. And minimum wage is $15 an hour. So at 30% of your housing fee, you could actually only afford $780. And I actually went to search to see if I could find anything for that price within Mount Prospect. And it was very difficult finding any property in that price range. The South Side has a TIF available that supports affordable housing, which I think we could utilize. And just if the village website could be updated so that it makes it more streamlined for the consumer to find out, to research that information, I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Jeannie. Jack? Let me repeat the question. Should Mount Prospect invest in an initiative to create more affordable housing options?
Well, I think based on her numbers, as she indicated, I think they're correct. I think they meet that standard now. I think it was around 30% is what Bill Cooney had mentioned previously when that had been brought up. But as a home builder, the $1.1 million house right now used to be the $550,000 house. So there's a lot of seniors who call me and they say, hey, do you want to buy my house? And it's almost the same response over and over and over. They have to move to a more affordable area outside of the Chicago market. So we're pretty much landlocked as far as having land for that. As she mentioned, Terry, the building on Algonquin Road was a great example and a great use of that. And I don't know what the occupancy of that is, but that's really the true standard of what it should be.
Thank you, Jack. Beth?
Well, everyone's covered a lot of this. I was going to mention that we have 30% affordable housing as well, which is, I think, one of the higher numbers in the area. What I'm concerned, I'm just going to shift a little bit because the rest was fairly well covered. I do think we need to look at some smaller townhomes, condos. It doesn't have to be in the new property, but that maybe people that are downsizing from their house could afford to move into and still get to, spend their lives in Mount Prospect. I'd like to see some more affordable buy options of like the townhome condo variety for younger people here too. Like when we moved out, my husband and I got married in 1993. He's from Mount Prospect, but we wanted to live here, but there were very few options there, so we bought a townhouse in Palatine. And then when we had enough money to buy a single house, we moved to Mount Prospect. So focusing on sort of the brand new people that can't maybe want to have a lawn or anything to start with, they just want to have, a condo or a townhouse. And then maybe on the other end, the people that want to downsize from their four-bedroom house and they want to maybe get a two-bedroom something. I'd like to have some options for those people to consider.
Thank you, Beth. Terry, rebuttal?
Real quick, two things. One thing to answer Jack's question, that affordable housing project has 56 units, I believe. Secondly, you know what would be interesting to talk about affordable housing, and I haven't looked into this. I don't think that Mount Prospect has zoning laws against building McMansions next to neighbors. And when you knock down a single-family home, one of the smaller, 50 homes, mid-50s homes that were built, those are great starter homes for small families, and they're being replaced by much more expensive homes. So that I would be interested in taking a look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Jeannie, you ready for a question?
No.
Yeah, well, you're going to get one. Interesting question. By the way, I had nothing to do with the questions, and so other than to read them, and I will read this one. It is a good question. How do we get to a resolution with Prestige Feed? Should the village settle or continue fighting in court to have them shut down for good? Do you think that there has been withholding of public information about the Prestige lawsuit, particularly as it relates to the risks of public health?
So Prestige, my heart goes out to the families that are going through this issue right now. And I understand the village is under litigation and they can't share a lot of information with us. But what they could have done proactively was set up a page on their website just to give a current status of the lawsuit, for people to file a complaint or, just to get general information. Sharing nothing is not acceptable. At the Council for Coffee, there was someone who said that they sent multiple emails and they haven't received any responses back from Mike Cassidy or from a lot of the people at the village. And my son actually goes to River Trail, and I was unaware of this, but recently I found out that they could smell it all the way over there. And I asked, did someone complain? But they said that no one knew what the smell was, so they didn't have anyone to go to. So I think sending out a mailer, to the residents within a certain distance to say, hey, are you smelling something? Is something going on, with your health? Let us know. And that way they could record all the logs of those complaints.
Thank you, Jeannie. Jack?
I've been pretty vocal about this topic, and I've been pretty vocal about it because I know the building process. So also, out of my 30-year police career, I was a criminal detective for almost 18 years. So I investigated a lot of crime. Out of the 10 forcible felonies listed in Illinois, I was either the primary or secondary detective on 9 of those forcible felonies. So I have a lot of experience. The bottom line is the business should have never been allowed to open in the first place. And when everybody asks that question, there's no response. And we're not trying to pin it on anybody, but the residents, they're really victims at this point because they're trapped in their house in the warmer months of the year. Their kids are getting sick. They don't want to be outside. They've destroyed their quality of life, and they've devalued their property. And realtors are saying now that it's a disclosure issue. I've called for an investigation, and it's kind of fell on deaf ears. And I'll be honest, it's one of the reasons why I'm here. People said, hey, why didn't you get on the ballot? At that time, I wasn't prepared to do it. I'm here because of Prestige Feed.
Thank you, Jack. Beth? Sure, I'd be happy
Sorry, could you
to.
repeat the question again, because I want to
Of course,
make
yeah,
sure
and
I'm
I don't
answering
always talk as loud as I should,
what-
so.
what
But the
you
question is, how do we get to a resolution with Prestige Feed? Should the village settle or continue fighting in court to have them shut down for good? Do you think that there has been withholding of public information about the Prestige lawsuit, particularly as it relates to the risks to public health?
Okay, well, obviously, we all agree this is a horrible situation. I can't imagine what it must be like to have living with this for multiple years. That being said, and I'm coming from the perspective of a science teacher, okay? I like facts, I like data. I simply don't have all the information since I haven't been a board member during the litigation process. I know you've done FOIAs, I know people have done FOIAs. You do not get all the information from doing FOIAs, okay? I want to be careful what I say because I don't want to damage the village case, because if there are leaks, if there is misinformation, misleading things like I read in the paper today, it's going to cause more delays, and if there's enough damage done to the case, we could lose the case, and then we can't get rid of them at all. So I think the situation we're in is we need to win this case and move on. The settlement would, I'm guessing, I don't know, would probably be upwards of $7 million. And again, I'm not sure if you settled that you're even getting them to leave or you're getting rid of the problem. What I'm alluding to as far as misleading or inaccurate information, I read Tricia's election letter in the Journal today, and they were talking about the EPA letter that's supposedly out there, and oh, they're covering up. I mean, the implication was we're covering up some toxic stuff. I can't believe that the Protection Agency has been on this for over a year, and they're not telling something to shut down if there's toxic stuff. Noxious, smelly, yeah. Toxic, I'm not buying that, and I think it's misinformation at the moment.
Thank you, Beth. Terry?
Okay, really complex and sad issue. And yeah, the residents who are being affected by this are victims. And it's terrible. I cannot even think of what it has been like the last few years, raising children there or just not being able to go outside. It's deplorable. But there has been litigation going on even since before I became a trustee. And step by step, we have tried to resolve this for our residents' best interests. And because this is litigation, and when you understand the seriousness of not talking out of turn and making statements frivolously about information you do not know, you cannot speak publicly because it very well might hurt the case. So I have a fiduciary responsibility. I took an oath, so I cannot comment. I will say, to reinforce, that the Village of MP and the City of Des Plaines remain in lockstep as partners in this lawsuit and are eager for a trial. Eager. So what does that tell you? If I say anything more, then the company in the litigation may say, oh, one of your trustees is disparaging us. Okay? So
Thank you,
fine line
Terry.
here. Thank you.
Rebuttal?
Yes,
Jean?
so Beth said that there isn't any indication of any toxin, right? So there was a toxicology test that was recently approved for $70,000, and they wouldn't be doing that test if there wasn't any issues on why they had to do it. So during the Coffee with Council, I asked the trustees and Mike, I asked if there was anyone, did anyone come forward recently that with the more serious illness, or like why are they doing this test now, at 5 years later, since they've been in this lawsuit? And he said, yes, there's been new evidence come forward for them to have a toxicology test.
I'm going to respond to
Beth,
Jeannie.
then Jack.
Oh, what? I was there. I don't remember hearing that, but here's what I'm going to tell you. One of the most persuasive neighbors said, we need data, we need data, we need data. That's what the $69,000 thing is, to get as much data as possible to go into the case so that we can win the court case. My problem was somebody putting in the journal that, oh, there's a secret IEPA letter, and oh, implying that the village is covering it up. And I am telling you, why would the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency find out, let's say there's formaldehyde coming out of there, some random toxic chemical, okay? Why would they find that out a year ago and then let Prestige continue to spew that? I'm not saying there's not noxious stuff. There's probably butyric acid. There's probably some other stuff that's really gross and it makes you throw up. I've worked with it in my chemistry class before. It's a cheese thing, okay? I'm totally speculating, but I'm saying I trust the Environmental Protection Agency to shut these people down if they're putting out something that's going to be toxic to the residents. That's just where I'm coming from on that one.
Thank you, Beth. Jack?
Yeah, real quick, your question was kind of like a four-part question, so
It
just
was.
to backtrack a little
Would
bit.
you like me to read it again?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I agree with these ladies, but I will add that I think that the trial is supposed to be held in October. This is another summer that the residents can enjoy their property. And you can say all day long that you're going to win, but if you lose, they can stay, right? They can stay. They don't have to go anywhere. And the thing about it is, here's their application right here. They said, we will be processing cheese for animal feed in the facility. The cheese will be dried into powder form and then sold as raw ingredient into swine feeds. This product will be solely for animal feed use. My sister, when she said, why are you doing this? Why are you running for village board? And I told her why. And she said, wouldn't anybody know from the village that if you do anything with cheese, it's going to smell? She lives on a farm in rural Wisconsin, and she's right. So I just think that the village for the last 4 years has spent a lot of money on attorneys, and no judge has shut them down. So I asked Mr. Cassidy at the Coffee with Council, do they have a place to move to? I think he said no, or it was kind of ambiguous. So I don't think they have anywhere to go as far as what I'm being told. But no matter what, even if they were going to move, they're still suing the village for allowing them to open and then kind of telling them you can't be open anymore. So at some point here, somebody may want to make the decision to cut your losses. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Jack. Beth and then Terry?
Do you think what you're doing right now is helping us win the case? Which is probably the best way to get a resolution to this. I am sympathetic to these people, but I'm looking at it from a logical thing of starting an investigation. You're probably going to get the truth out faster in depositions of a trial than you are to starting the investigation. So I'm trying to hope that we can win this case and then move on. That's my position, but I worry that when we put out stuff that, like you said in the board meeting a couple weeks ago, I didn't see that Prestige did anything wrong. That doesn't seem like it's going to be very helpful to the case. Anyway, that's all.
They didn't do anything wrong. Their application is right here. They said what they were going to do. And then if you go to you can go on the village website and look at the manufacturing heavy industrial use or light use. It's clearly heavy industrial use what they were going to do. They didn't even try to pretend that's not what they were going to do, and that's what they did. But the thing is, somebody from the village allowed this to occur. And I'm not talking about anything that's going to jeopardize the case, because this is all common knowledge that everybody knows. Everybody's aware of all this information. There's been probably 30 or 40 stories between the Journal and the Daily Herald about it. So everybody's talking about it. People were talking about it, Coffee with Council. There was a meeting here last Tuesday, we were talking about it. I just think that the people in Fairview Gardens are victims.
Thank you, Jack. We're going to finish this question with Terry. I think you had your hand raised, so.
Yes, something that Jack just said caught my ears, stories. Something that Beth has talked about, facts, data. Now I'm going to add the word litigation again. And I think if you are familiar with building and development codes, you know that when you have an applicant to open a business in your village and you want to encourage business, you ask them to fill out the form. And the applicant says whether or not they're going to meet your code requirements. And what is part of code requirements? Whether an odor is going to go beyond their, physical limits. So I will just end it at that.
Jack, believe it or not, you're up for the next question.
I'm ready.
I know you are. What steps will you take to encourage and welcome citizens to be a part of the village's strategic planning process? Which coordinates, yeah.
I appreciate everybody that's here tonight, and it's a perfect example of don't complain later if you don't get involved. I think there's, especially with the trustee races, I commend the other 4 candidates for getting involved. I think there's a lack of participation, and I think it's vital for the village as a whole to have as much participation as possible. One of the reasons why initially I wasn't going to run was because of my kids. I get it. Everybody's super busy. But, somebody like Paul Hofert, he's dedicated 30 years of his life to getting involved. And he is the epitome of getting involved. There's others, too, along the way. And you can't complain about things if you don't get involved. And that was one of the reasons why my wife said, it's time for you to jump in. And I did.
Thank you, Jack. Beth?
I think a great way to start to get people involved is to try to get them to go to Coffee with Council. I've only been 3 times in my life because I decided to run, and as all of us, a lot of Saturdays are busy. But I am telling any of you that haven't been, it is the most fun. Typically, if anyone was there last Saturday, it's not normally like that. It's normally a smaller group of people just sort of asking, different kinds of questions. Like one of the questions that somebody asked last time was they had hired a snow removal company and they were doing a terrible job. And this was a senior citizen, and she was wondering if the village had any resources for that. And then there was a comment that, oh yes, Human Services had partnered up with some students from the high schools, and they could be a resource for that. Or like a Coffee with Council in January, we were talking about the brine that they put on the streets and that they don't use the beets anymore. And because I'm a chemistry teacher, Sean and I were talking about sodium chloride versus calcium chloride and how that extra chlorine lowers the point of the freezing more. So that's just a way to get people sort of interested, and then they could build off of that, I think, and go and start to attend more board meetings and become involved more deeply in the process.
Thank you, Beth. Terry? I sure can. What steps will you take to encourage and welcome citizens to be a part of the village's strategic planning process?
I love the strategic planning process. We have a great facilitator come in, and he works with the staff, he works with leadership, and he works with board, and then he brings everyone together, kind of. And we have to rate all of the priorities. So the reason I became interested in serving as a trustee is a long, long time ago. When I was a newbie, I started going to the strategic planning process. I wanted to see what it was about. And finally, after about the second or third time of sitting on the sidelines, I began to understand how the priorities were being placed out. Part of that, as a trustee, and I want to say that I am a working full-time mom, that I always found time to talk to residents. In fact, in gathering petitions, I worked several weekends at the farmers market, and it was a joy to talk to people and find out what they were interested in and what they did not like. I mean, that is so important. So all of that input I am taking to the strategic planning session because I want to hear the concerns of the residents, and I want to hear what your aspirations are, especially now that we have a new, parcel ready for development. So you can come to the strategic planning session, please do. You won't sit at the main table with the board, but there's nice chairs on the side. You can, add your comments at certain times, but it is really fascinating. So, and you kind of, get a closer look at how the village structure works. And not every village does a strategic plan. So it's really critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Jeannie?
Yes. So my understanding of the strategic planning that's currently happening, what Terry has said is it's more for the staff and the board. And it's important to get the public's input. They kind of sit on the sidelines instead of at the main table. And we're hoping that their information is brought forward at the table. I think it's important that there is, right now that's not televised like this. It's difficult for some people to make it to those dates. If we could make it more accessible, that would be better. And if, there are ideas, there might be a lot of different ideas that come to this session, and they might not all be heard or implemented, but maybe for future projects, or maybe, there might be a solution already out there for them that they might not be aware of.
Thank you, Jeannie. And I think we left off with, we started with Beth, we're going to leave off with Jack, if I remember correctly. Does that make sense, or did you answer that question? Or let me look.
I did.
He answered it already? Thank
I
you.
was first.
You were first. Thank you. Okay, so I got a couple of notes here. What we're going to do, just again for timing, is we're going to begin, we're going to skip a couple of questions, but we're going to have some good questions. And yeah, we got some good ones. Beth, since you said they're good questions, we're going to start with you. I think we start with Jack, that's right. Many businesses and restaurants in Mount Prospect are owned by the same people. If those folks decide to change locations, it could have a severe economic impact in the village. Do you feel it is worthwhile to actively recruit businesses that are not already represented in the village in order to diversify ownership and possible issues in the village?
I have a maybe slightly different take on it than where your question's going. I think my problem with the restaurants and the ownership of the restaurants right now is not that one person might own 3 restaurants. It's that the people that are owning a particular restaurant, like I have a favorite that I go to every single morning, and the prices are up, the menu prices are up, the landlord wants to raise the rent every single time for the next 5 years. We lose this guy, we're losing a big, important part of the community. But he's been looking around for other areas in the downtown to say, well, where could I land? And there's new developments where the rent is okay, but then there's a build-out cost and he can't quite afford that. I've had a lot of people comment on how we don't have the cute little, Little America type restaurants where you can walk in and have a little bit more affordable meal and things like that. I was talking to some people the other day that said they like to leave church with a big group at 6:30 on a Saturday night, and they don't really know how many people they're going to have all the time, so they want to be able to, go someplace without a reservation, and there's just not a lot of that there. So I think I'd like to try to keep the small guys around and maybe attract a little bit more of that. I'm not so worried about the successful person that's got 3 restaurants going at the same time.
Thank you, Beth. Terry?
That's a really good question. I think that, the village only has a certain amount of control over the businesses that go inside properties that we do not own. So if a building owner wants to have such and such restaurant come in because the rent is good and they like the location and all those other important criteria, then we can't control that. Okay, now what we can do though is with our great planning department constantly be sending out feelers to maybe see, is there a certain type of business or retail that, we can let them know about certain properties that are available. And we can do that. We do that kind of outreach. So it's, again, something we don't have complete control over, yet we have some control that we can kind of push out, opportunities and to certain markets that we think we need to fill in our downtown, whether that's a restaurant or a certain type of business.
Thank you, Terry. Jeannie?
Can you ask the question again?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Many businesses and restaurants in Mount Prospect are owned by the same people. If these folks decide to change locations, it could have a severe economic impact in the village. Do you feel it is worthwhile to actively recruit businesses that are not already represented in the village in order to diversify ownership and possible issues in the village?
Yes, I think it is important to diversify. And as a small business owner in the downtown area, I think one thing the village lacks is incentive for open here. We're limited in commercial spacing. So even if I've heard some people, store owners that are looking for space and they weren't able to find anything that was available, and they want to move into this area. So I think we're limited on space. We could be providing more incentives to bring different businesses here, restaurants or small business. So I think that's something that we could actually build on that we're currently not doing.
Thank you, Jean. Jack, same question?
All really good points. Small business is very difficult. It's very hard owning a small business, and I'll tell a story about Chris Bosnellis from Mrs. P and Me. We go there a lot, and I remember him probably going back, 4 or 5 years ago, saying, "Business is fine, but we need 8 to 10 more restaurants." And that's been part of the mayor's campaign, talking about the restaurants that are moving in. Those restaurants need each other because that just continues to bring more people down. And, a lot of people like to try different things so they're not eating the same thing over and over again. But as Beth indicated, that a lot of it's beyond the business owner's control if they don't own the property when the rent continues to go up. And honestly, in this market, you'd have to go to like Rockford to get cheaper property because everything is so expensive. I think that from what my understanding is community development, they do a very good job of recruiting businesses to town, but also it's imperative that the community development, Downtown Merchants Association, and the Chamber of Commerce have a good relationship to make that all come together, which I believe they do.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, let's see. Beth, rebuttal?
Oh, it's not really rebuttal. I just had one more
Comment.
comment that he made me think of when we were talking about that. Like the gentleman that I'm talking about has been looking at other locations. And one thing he says they're doing in Wheeling, he's not sure if they have the money to do it, but they're talking about maybe helping with build-out costs on somebody with the new restaurant, at least on the stuff that's going to be a permanent fixture within the facility, as terms of, you got the rent, but this way maybe you don't have to take out quite as much of a loan on the build-out costs. So that was all.
Thank you. Jeannie?
So the village does have a program already for that. So it's for their facade, signage, and website, and the interior build out. And they so the person has to pay for up to 50% of the project, and it's capped at $10,000. Yeah, but you get something.
Okay, thank you. So, our last question is for Terry. And how will you ensure transparency in decision-making processes and maintain accountability in the community?
From the board?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think one way is that when something comes up for a vote or discussion at board meetings or committee of the wholes, you have to speak your mind. And I think you have to do the homework ahead of time of knowing what the facts are, what issue you're taking a look at or voting on, and then ask good questions. You can also ask good questions behind the scenes and get those answers. Sometimes you need to bring those questions forward so the public knows, hey, you know what, I'm asking about this, and you're going to hear the answer, in public. So, excuse me. So that's one way to do it. The second way to do it is encourage people to watch the board meetings and come to the board meetings, because you can email your trustees and ask those questions as well. The third thing is that when you see a member not being accountable, you can talk with them in private and try and have one-on-one conversations, try and understand where they're coming from, or you could take more serious measures at the board level. But I think it does take an understanding of board structure and how boards work as opposed to staff, because they're different to some degree. Thank you.
Terry. Jeannie?
So I think making the information public and accessible for the community, I think that's key for transparency. So I think knowledge is key. Not everyone might align with the choice, but as long as they know the information behind those decisions, I think they'll be more open for them. And then not withhold information from the community. I feel like right now some things are out there, but it might be difficult to find, or some things are just being helpful.
Thank you, Jeannie. Jack?
I think that my years on the police department, going back 30 years in the past, previous administrations of staff would do annual reports. And I think that's really critical to get as much information out as possible to the community. If I was a trustee, I would do my own homework and make sound, rational decisions based on the information given and then based on the information that I obtained by myself. But I think annual reports are critical to providing that transparency across the board.
Thank you, Jack. Beth?
I think one way we could increase transparency, and I've mentioned this at Coffee with the Council, is if you have a multi-year, multi-million-dollar project just to start, you can't have transparency for absolutely everything all over the website, right? But you should have links to the meetings where that was an agenda item and that was discussed so that the people could watch the meetings about it, okay? I'm specifically referring to the Mellis Meadows Bridge, and not because that's an issue, it's just emblematic of what I'm talking about. The other thing that I think is really important on transparency, I'm going to use that again. How are you going to put up a bridge that is 30 foot before you even get to the bridge deck that could get up to 60 feet tall and not talk to the people in the neighborhood? Now, I've talked to two specific people that live on Kenilworth. Randomly, I ran into them, and they don't know about this. We need to be physically taking little flyers and going to the places where people might be affected and letting them at least know what's going on. I live by the golf course, and when they put up the netting on the driving range, they called all the neighbors over, and we got to stand back there, and they got to show us, this is how tall it's going to be, this is what color it's going to be, this is what it's going to look like. And we were like, okay, well, what's it going to be? They had a crane. Is it going to be 150? Is it going to be 75? Is it going to be 30 feet? Something like that. And it was important, and we felt good about the decision because we were included in it. So I think it's important to include anybody who's going to be an active stakeholder, and that'll make people feel a lot better about the situation.
Thank you, Beth. We answered those quickly, so guess what? We're going to have, Terry, go ahead. No, yeah. Sure.
Just kind of an add-on. I totally believe in more transparency, as Beth is talking about, especially when people are involved. But just so you know, the bridge does not actually go by anyone's house. I just want to make that clear. The other thing is Jack talked about, annual reports, which are a great idea. And in case you haven't seen this year's economic development report, it is full of good news. So I'm sure you can email me or any trustee and get a copy of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth?
The bridge, I drove over to Kenilworth at 111 North Kenilworth from on, you can see the train tracks, which means you're going to walk out your front door and you're going to see that 60-foot bridge. The second thing is, as Jack said in our other interview we had, if we have hundreds of people using this bridge, you don't think there's a ton of kids on their bicycles that are going to be riding up and down these streets to get to the bridge? They could go through the park, but they could go through the streets. I'm not saying these people won't think this bridge is the greatest thing in the world, because maybe they have kids that want to do it, but you've got to let them know before all of a sudden there's hundreds of middle school boys and girls riding their bikes through their neighborhood. That's all.
Thank you, Beth. Jack?
I'm surprised there wasn't a bridge question. I think that the village board needs to be unanimous on the bridge, that they want the bridge. They need to make that vote, make that decision, and then they have to have the money to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our last question. Let's see, I think we'll begin with Jeannie on this one.
I thought that was the last question.
It was, remember I said we had a little extra time, so we're going to ask one more. A
trick question.
A trick question for you. By the way, understand, again, I don't write the questions. Most of these come in from the public, the journal, but you like it. It's Jeannie, we'll start with you. How will you hold the village manager accountable and ensure that he delivers value to taxpayers that's commensurate with his increasing compensation?
Okay, so for this one, so for me, I'm not, I disagree with the 7% increase that Cassidy had received. And so for this year, for next year, I guess this year to 2025, his total compensation package is $371,000, which is, most average people get a 2 or 3% increase, and he got a $30,000 bonus, or will be getting it. So I think it's important that we reevaluate, his pay based on the neighboring villages and cities and adjust accordingly. I think there should be some annual goals and benchmarks set. It seemed like, when they were discussing his pay increase, that they said that he had met a lot of the guidelines that were in the strategic planning, which to me indicated that he just kind of did the bare minimum. He didn't exceed it. He did what he.
Thank you, Jeannie. Jack?
Well, when I was a young police officer back in 1990, we used to, when we'd get off work at 7 in the morning, we'd go to Arlington Heights and we'd have breakfast. There's all kinds of construction going on. And then we would go to court in Rolling Meadows. So I will give Mr. Cassidy some credit when he was hired here specifically for this development. And he got things going in like 2016. But if you look back you go to Burr Ridge and Naperville and Western Springs and all these other communities, they started this process way before. And as Trustee Jens has said, she's 100% correct, we can't go backwards, right? So I think what he's done in the downtown area, in the community at large, is exactly what he's getting paid for. So Trustee Jens has previously said top talent gets top pay. I agree with that, right? And that's how it is in the private sector. But this other issue that we have going on the north side of town, I don't know if I would have gave him that 6.5%. I don't know if I would have extended his contract for another year until this pans out.
Thank you, Jack. Beth?
I think that his total compensation package puts him, what did they say, at about the 75th percentile, which is kind of where we want to be. We want to be above the Midlands. We don't want to be the highest. I think what needs to happen is he needs a restructuring. Can't do it any different now, but you could start where he was at and give a smaller salary increase and a bigger bonus potential. And the bonus potential needs to be on what he did that year, okay? So that's the financial aspect of it. I would say do a little bit of a restructuring where it's more bonus heavy, so he still has a chance to earn that package, but he's gonna have to do something for it. What I would also say, though, is that you need people on the board that are willing to challenge him. And I'm not on the board right now, but I have already challenged him on a couple of things in terms of having the independent outside expert for the 111 East Bussey property, which he does not agree with, but he's willing to listen at least. And, some of the stuff that I'm bringing up with the bridge, he may or may not agree with that at all. So I am pretty stubborn. I'm not great at taking no for an answer unless you're going to give me a very good explanation of why it's a no, and that's good. But if somebody just says you can't do it, I'm not going to walk away until I know why it is we can't do it, and I'm going to try several different angles to get it done. So I think you need somebody where we would supervise him as trustees. So you do need to push and let him know what you want and if there's a different direction that you want to be going. And I guess that's where I'm going to end that question.
Thank you, Beth. Terry?
I think one of the assets of working for larger organizations like hospitals or social service agencies with budgets of $150 million is that you get to be in on the process of hiring new CEOs, which is equivalent to a village manager. So at that point, you become used to looking at apples to apples in terms of looking at peer salaries, and you make sure that you're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges, i.e. what are our peer communities, villages, that have similar resident populations, similar development, similar things like that, services. So you really take a look at the complete depth and breadth of what the village manager is really accountable for. So the village manager is responding to direction from the board, and then he's been given the authority to put that direction into practice because he's the manager. He puts that into practice, and we trust him to do that. He is the expert on HR. He is the expert on building. He is the expert on public works and things like that. So I think he deserved that raise. I think he deserved that bonus. I think if you like lower taxes, you would encourage economic development as well as a well-run fire department, police department, and public works. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeannie, I'm going to take your rebuttal. I'm going to limit this to 30 seconds, so just so we got the necessary time. Please.
So in Des Plaines, the village manager gets paid $270,000, and their population is 58,000. And so just to put it in context, and then Arlington Heights, their village manager gets $298,000. I know he just got a bonus, but their population is almost 20,000 more than us, and they both get paid less.
Thank you, Jean. Terry, 30 seconds.
How's that Des Plaines downtown looking?
They're growing. They just built that building. They got the Hot Pots, Galaxy, and, they got the new police station.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to move on to the closing statements, and we're actually going to, I think we're left with Jean. We're going to start with Jack. Jack, your closing statement, which we're asking to keep to 60 seconds, please.
Well, I want to thank everybody again for coming, the Journal for putting this together. I enjoyed this process. I want to thank the other three candidates. I know Trustee Matuzak is out of town on vacation. I am a write-in candidate, and I have a tough hill to climb. So I would appreciate, hopefully, everybody listen to what I have to say. I would consider this position as a trustee as a great opportunity to serve. There's been multiple times where Trustee Jens has said she likes to serve. She wants to continue to serve. I genuinely believe exactly that that's true in her heart, and that's how I feel as well. I served the community as a police sergeant for 30 years, and I would like to continue to serve. I'm a second-generation Air Force veteran. My father was a prisoner of war, and I believe this was my calling. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Beth?
Thank you to everyone for participating tonight. Thank the three of you for debating. I also want to thank my husband who got thrown into this kind of crazy political process for putting up with all this and stuff like that. And I do have two daughters, which I meant to mention in my opening statement, but I skipped it because I was nervous. Anyway, I am really excited to have the opportunity to be a full-time trustee. I'm retired. This is what I want to do. Like, this is my next career, and I really love this community, and I want to devote a ton of time to that. I love to go out and do research and collect data and, look at the railings on bridges. And I also want to work collaboratively and bring my different sort of skill set to the people that are already on the board and sort of complement everything so that we can all bring our different strengths together and work on the problems for Mount Prospect. So thank you so much for coming out tonight, and I hope I can earn your vote.
Thank you, Beth. Terry?
I want to thank everyone for coming, and thank you again, Journal, and Candidates, thank you. As your board member, I promise these things. As I have in the past, I will continue to do so. Actively engage to listen to residents. Continue to hold town halls in different parts of our village to reach people. Improve fiscal responsibility and transparency. I want to keep your taxes low. I want to cut inefficiencies and add value to services. I want to advance successful and innovative development to draw people to Mount Prospect. I want to support more comprehensive services for seniors and youth. And I want to advocate for MP to become leaders in sustainability, which we started on by having a sustainability committee, which I was involved in. I'm very proud of that, proud of our board and mayor. So we're fighting inflation. And right now, the village of Mount Prospect is in excellent shape. We're stable, working towards an improved AAA bond rating. And we've started an emergency fund, which reflects strategic long-range planning and saving. So I hope you vote for me so I can continue to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Jeannie?
Yes, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today, the Journal on Topic and all the other candidates that are here today. So if you'd like to see someone truly invested in Mount Prospect, I'm here to serve Mount Prospect. You may have seen me at the Celebration of Culture, at the Farmers Market, Oktoberfest, 4th of July Parade, at Euclid's Muffins with Munchkins. I dress up every year during the Downtown Business Trick-or-Treat event. And the list goes on. And these are just some of the things I did last year. These are volunteer hours that I've committed to. And as some of you have already, you could, feel free to stop by the store, or you could connect with me during any event. I'm always available and approachable for the community. I was not recruited for this position, and some of the candidates will have you believe that this race is not contested. I started my petition on day one, August 20th. And I am running as a write-in candidate because my petitions were challenged for missing a paper clip.
Thank you, Jeannie. Well, actually, thank you, Jeannie. Thank you, all of the candidates. You did a great job. It was very informative. We appreciate you coming tonight. I hope I didn't confuse everyone too much. But anyways, if you'd exit the stage and we'll get the next group up here. Thank you so much. Okay, our last debate will feature the two mayoral candidates. We will now begin with the introduction of the candidates running for Mount Prospect Village Mayor, beginning with Trish. If you could start out, you'll have 90 seconds to make your opening remark, please.
Great. Thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you to the Journal and Topics for hosting this debate today. I also want to thank Mayor Hofert for his time tonight as well. And I thank you all for coming out, and those of you who are watching at home. It's going to be a riveting conversation at 8 p.m. at night, I'm sure. My name is Tricia Chokshi. I am a resident of Mount Prospect since 2013. I'm also a mom of two very young kids. I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I'm an attorney. I own a business here in town as well. I'm running for mayor because I think we're ready for a change. Our village has undergone significant growth. There's no doubt about that, and I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about that tonight. However, with that growth, we've seen new challenges and new concerns come forward. And so we need a new mayor, a new vision with bold contemporary leadership to meet this moment and carry our community forward. I'm going to bring multifaceted experience to this job. I've worked in the nonprofit sector, I've worked as a congressional staffer for the federal government, and now I work in the private sector as an attorney. I also served on the village's Finance Commission since 2016 through last year, and I was also its chairwoman as well for the last 4 years. Public service is also in my blood. My father is a municipal engineer and for 40 years, and civil engineers are builders. So I learned very young that public service provides an enormous opportunity for innovation and growth, and I believe I can bring that vision as your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Paul?
Well, good evening, everybody. It's so great to see everybody out tonight. We had a great meeting last night, just like this. I'm Paul Hofert, your mayor. And I am the uniquely qualified candidate for the role of mayor, given my deep experience gained over serving the people of Mount Prospect for 34 years on our village board, my skill set related to municipal governance, my depth of knowledge of village operations, and my 44 years as a professional, as a senior manager in financial services. I'm extremely passionate about our village and have been since the day Linda and I moved here 42 years ago. I serve solely out of love of community. During my time as mayor, the village has been on a tremendous upward and positive trajectory of progress. We've experienced unprecedented growth and development. In addition, in the past 2 years, the village's portion of your property taxes are down 11%. And we got rid of the village stickers finally. Thank God, everybody wanted to get rid of those. Specifically, I'm running for re-election to continue to champion our focus on citizen safety, protecting our residential neighborhoods, promoting sustainability, maintaining our fiscal responsibility, soliciting citizen feedback, and continuing down the path of growth and prosperity. Additionally, know that I am a nonpartisan independent candidate with absolutely no ties to any political parties, organizations, or individuals. I answer to no one except you guys. As your mayor, I will continue to drive this village forward to new heights, and I will keep the positive momentum going for the next 4 years. Thank you,
Paul. So I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. The questions you're going to get tonight, they're interesting questions. They've come from the public, and the Journal had a great question. I think maybe the Journal decided to ask a couple questions. So I'm going to allow both of you to answer the question. I'm also going to allow a rebuttal. If somebody doesn't like something that was said, please just raise your hand, and you'll have, let's see here, 90 seconds to respond to the question. So I'll start with Tricia again. Question number 1. Do you believe that the color of your skin or ethnicity or gender should be a consideration in evaluating your qualifications for mayor?
Well, I certainly think that representation matters. I'm a person of color, and I do believe that I bring a unique experience to almost everything I do. It's how I see the world through a different pair of eyes. I see that through my children's eyes as well. So I wouldn't necessarily consider it as, a simple factor, but you're looking at the experiences that that person is bringing. So where, where someone is from, certainly, but how they grew up, where they grew up, the type of household they might be coming from, those are all important factors that are going to factor into one's decision-making. As part of my day job, I'm an immigration attorney. So I work predominantly with vulnerable communities, underrepresented communities, and those who are not always seen and not always heard in the decision-making process. So if I were to bring that skill set to the board, I know that I'm going to be able to be the mayor that's going to listen to all perspectives, and we have a very diverse community too. So I welcome that community input.
Thank you, Tricia. Paul?
Could you repeat the question?
Of course I can. Do you believe that the color of your skin or ethnicity or gender should be a consideration in evaluating your qualifications for mayor?
So here's what I think. We're all unique individuals, right? If you come from a different country of origin, or you're black or white or whatever, those all add to you as a person, right? You grew up, as my challenger said, you grew up, you lived a life, you have experiences that are inside of you, right? I have those too. And they're different, but they're unique. And I have given myself to scouting and to the village, and that all builds a person that's willing to be a servant leader. That's what I am. Does a person of color, and does that add into their background? Yes. Do I have a lot that adds into my background? Absolutely. I think when you cut it down to the very bottom, who's qualified to do the job, right? And if both are qualified and the person, has other things that build their character that you like, then vote for them. But the most qualified person should get the job.
Thank you, Paul. This next question, I don't know if you were here earlier for the Village of Trustees discussion, but it's going to sound familiar. So, Paul, maybe I'll start with you again this time.
Sure.
Just kind of go back and forth that way. So how do we get to a resolution with Prestige Feed? Should the village settle or continue fighting in court to have them shut down for good? Do you think that there has been withholding of public information about the Prestige lawsuit, particularly as it relates to the risks to public health?
So, unfortunately, as mayor, I know things, and plus we're in litigation. I know confidential things. We're in litigation, and we're also under a non-disparagement order by the judge. So I'm limited as to what I can say, which is unfortunate. But when will this end? How is it going to end? Two ways. One, they're going to stop spewing their smell over their lot line, or they're going to move. It's the only two ways. Now, how do we make that happen? We keep up the legal push. Because if you don't keep it up, they're going to just pretend like, I guess we can still operate here. But if we keep pushing on the legal front, and I believe now we have a judge that understands what's going on, I think we will prevail. But if we let off the gas, this is going to just extend so much further. So they either stop what they're doing or they leave our village, and I would love to see them leave our village.
Thank you, Paul. Tricia?
Thank you. Well, I will agree with Mayor Hofert when he says, the village has to see the trial process through. I absolutely agree. We're in litigation. We're operating under a confidential settlement agreement that we can't necessarily deviate from, and so we do need to see that play out. I think what residents need to understand, though, when you go to trial, it's not a given that the village is going to win. So if we do not win, it's very well that Prestige could go back to operating at its normal hours during the day, outside of the parameters of the agreement. I do want to make one note. Mayor Hofert mentioned the non-disparagement clause. A non-disparagement clause in a legal case doesn't prohibit you from talking about litigation. You can always provide your residents with fact-based information about a legal case or the situation that's happening. A non-disparagement provision gets put in there because someone who they're trying to enforce that provision against has disparaged the other side. And unfortunately, we have seen outside communication, whether it's a letter to the editor or comments to the press about Prestige, that necessitated that clause. One thing that I've pushed for continuously, we have very, very tough questions we need to answer about Prestige Feed. Primarily, how did this company get to open? And why did we not catch this from the beginning? We have a zoning code, we have a very competent staff, and serious pieces of that were missed.
Thank you.
I'd like to rebut.
Paul?
In terms of how did it get here? Well, they built themselves as a cheese storage facility. That's one thing. The other thing is, I hear people say, oh, we should just settle. Well, what does that mean? If we settle and they stay? No, they can't stay and do what they're doing. It's obnoxious. So I don't know what that means when people say, other than some people have thrown about big numbers, 5 million, 7 million, to help them move. That's not going to happen. They visited themselves upon us, and we're not going to give them that kind of money to leave this village.
Thank you, Paul. Tricia?
So the Mayor Hofert mentions cheese storage facility, and to provide some context, I believe he is referencing a 2018 zoning meeting where the landlord came forward and suggested that that's what Prestige Feed was going to be. But here's what it says in the business license. We will be processing cheese for animal feed in the facility. The cheese will be dried into powder form and then sold as a raw ingredient into swine feed. The product will then be used for animal feed use. So I understand if the landlord comes forward and says, one thing, but that's exactly what the zoning process is for. That's exactly what we have a community development department for. We have building inspections. If I put a fence up in my yard, I have to go through a permit process. I have to have an inspector come out before. I have to have an inspector come out after. It's a very thorough process that I'm sure homeowners can identify with. So, this notion that perhaps something was misrepresented, I'm sure residents in the Prestige neighborhood probably don't want to hear this, but I do think they provided all the forthcoming information. I don't know if we can necessarily move forward with that argument.
Are we allowed to say one more thing?
Sure.
Okay. The comment was made about non-disparaging comments. I always keep my comments, I try to keep them fairly benign so that I'm not disparaging. But it's interesting that one of our trustees, who might just happen to be related to the Challenger, called me out on that publicly. I try to keep my comments so that I'm not disparaging and hurting our case, and I was called out. So I'm very careful because I am not going to hurt our case.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
Okay.
By the way, if you're welcome to respond, just raise your hand so I know
Thank
want
you.
to respond.
He got called out for it because he just used the word 2 minutes ago. He used the word stench. That is a loaded word compared to odor, compared to smell, okay? So that's number one. Number two, my husband is not running for this position. I am running for this position. And this tiresome talking point, and quite frankly, very weird obsession with my marriage, is taking away from the serious discussion. What I took away from last Tuesday, I saw a father come forward who does not know if his child's seizures are being caused by this company. That's what the only focus should be on. But this whole back and forth we've had about, whether one trustee resigned because of me or such, what is truly troubling is that the mayor, most likely, given he is the head of this board, knows exactly why that trustee resigned. But that information is not available to the public. It most likely is available to him. So at best, the comment is reckless. At worst, it's intentional. And that should be really concerning for a lot of residents.
I have no idea why that trustee resigned, other than it was irresponsible, this close to the end of his term. And second, I think it was to promote somebody and put doubt in the voters' minds. That's what I think.
Okay, this will be the last comment. Oh, you want to let him keep going? Keep going.
Well, that's a character argument, and what I would welcome the mayor to do is provide proof to that effect. However, what I will say, there is a very heavily redacted letter, a resignation letter that's been floating around online because a resident had requested it. I would imagine that the redacted portions provide some, insight as to why this trustee resigned. And so if this mayor has proof that the trustee resigned for a political purpose to assist one candidate in the race, I asked that he bring forward that information. Again, as a mayor, it's incredibly reckless to make a character-based argument like that when you are facing probably the most notable piece of litigation this village most likely will see.
Okay?
I'm done.
You're done? Okay, good. This kind of goes on with what the trustees also talked a little bit about, so I'd like to get this question out there. What are your views on using general reserve funds for the Mailus Bridge? What if we have to assume even more of the cost of it if grant funding falls through? Are these funds unlimited? We're going to start out with Tricia on this one.
Sure. So I've said I'm not fundamentally opposed to the bridge. I think the process leading up to the bridge and where we're at is what I think I have raised concerns about. A few weeks ago, we had a great presentation at a committee of the whole for an arterial bike study. But that's exactly the type of thing that should have happened before we decided to move forward with this bridge. You need to identify whether the project is something that the residents need. So that's number one. Second, millions have been spent on this project and there's zero board approval for it. So if we're going to move forward with it, I recommend that the board have that discussion and approve it or not move forward with it. The problem there is that there are serious concerns about whether there's going to be a clawback provision on some of the funds that we've received, and we're operating in an environment where it seems like the federal government is scrutinizing every dollar and making municipalities and recipients validate every dollar. The $1.6 million funding gap is certainly a concern. I believe at the end of the day, I do foresee that that gap is going to be larger. No one is questioning the importance of pedestrian safety. I think we all agree there. And if the project can be funded in a sound way, I would support it.
Thank you, Tricia. Paul?
First off, my challengers should check her facts. But when you look at this bridge, you look at any decision we make, especially one of that magnitude, you make decisions along the way based on, it's this decision about, okay, we need some engineering. We have to educate ourselves on what is this bridge going to cost? What is this bridge going to look like? What will the footprint look like? None of that is available to you until you start going through the process, right? On a broader scale, this bridge, I didn't support it in the beginning because there was no funding. And I said, if we don't have funding, we're not going to build this, right? And that's still true to today. If we don't have funding to build this bridge, it's not going to get built. But on a broader scale, connectivity of our village, north to south, that's an incredible benefit. And I can tell you, I talk to a lot of young families because I'm out in the community every day. I can tell you young families, young people that have kids, they can't wait for this bridge to get built. Because now the kids on the south can come and go to the pool, they can go to the park, they can play ball, they can go to Prospect High School, they can connect without having to get in a car and drive all the way around, right? And it goes the other way as well. People can come over to Millis and do the things they want to do on the north side of town without getting in a car and going around. But I guarantee you that until we have the funding and until we have a positive village board vote, this bridge will not get built.
Tricia?
Well, one material point when it comes to the funding is that right now there isn't stakeholder engagement on this bridge. So there are 3 other taxing bodies that have a stake in the land that's being connected by this bridge. Our Park District, the Arlington Heights Park District, Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. And all 3 have said that the bridge isn't a priority to the point where they're willing to devote funds to it. The Mount Prospect Park District just went to referendum last year. And as part of, I was on the citizen committee for that referendum. It was a very strategic, very thorough process. And if our park district in assessing how much, to go to bond and what to ask for, didn't identify the bridge as a strategic priority, I think we do need to give some consideration to that stakeholder input.
I'll just tell you this, after being up here for 34 years and not always being on the side of the rest of the board, leadership is lonely. And this, right now, is a lonely thing. That's just too bad that the other stakeholders decided not to come along. We haven't built the bridge. We're not building it until we have the funding. But it takes leadership to say, why do we need this? I've already explained why we need it. And do the people want it? I believe they want it. And so leadership can be lonely, no doubt about it.
You know, that's going to lead me into my next question. I'm shuffling questions because I think it's a good thing to do, and it's the right time. So Trish had the last question. Paul, how would you work with those on the board, village government, and members of the community who don't share your views in order to find common ground?
That's what we do. That's what I've done for 34 years. People say, oh, they'll watch me and say, you guys don't all agree. It's like, well, we're not supposed to agree. We're supposed to come up with independent thoughts that maybe I'm over here and you're over there, but eventually, if you watch this board, or boards before, you come together and you make a solid decision based on, okay, I like some of the things Paul said, I like some of the things that Terry said, I like some of the things that Bill said, and then ultimately you come to the middle and you make the best decision. Because differing opinions make for better decisions. I don't have all the answers. They don't have all the answers. And the citizens don't have all the answers, but let's put it all in a pot and figure it out. And that's what we did last night. I committed to reaching out and having the citizens come over 111 East Bussey, the bank, and they give us great ideas, things I hadn't even thought about, and none of the board had either. And we're gonna find the common thread through all of that, and ultimately we're gonna come up with the best end product based on what everybody would like to see there, including the development community.
Thank you, Paul. Tricia.
So I wear multiple hats in the community, and one of the hats I wear is community stakeholder. I serve on the board of the Mount Prospect Chamber and the Downtown Merchants Association. And I think, most people can agree, government and business don't always see eye to eye on things. And so in that role, I have come forward to the village, raised certain concerns about decisions that have been made. And I have serious concerns about whether we're fostering a collaborative environment for dissenting opinion. So I think some of that, if not all, actually, that tone starts at the top. So if you, as mayor, you're at the top, and you need to foster that environment of collaboration, of partnership, of making sure that we have multiple people at the table, not just the ones that we're agreeing with on things. And I believe I could do that. Every job I've had in my professional life has been about community building. It's what I do. And I'm looking forward to bringing that experience to this position.
Thank you.
I'd like to reply to that. A couple of things. Some seeds of doubt have been thrown out there that somehow we're at odds with the business community. We are not at odds with the business community. We are right in there with them because what's happening on the south side and what's happening downtown and what's happening in Randhurst, that couldn't be any better, right? We are development friendly, not to the expense of the residents, but appropriately development friendly, and we are right there. That's why when I cut ribbons, I couldn't be more thrilled, because what does that mean to you guys? It means we have new businesses, new services, new restaurants, new industrial, all kinds of things happening in this town that weren't happening before. So we're not at odds with the business community. We're at odds with the chamber, which is not the business community. There are some differences there. But in terms of the business community, we welcome you. If you have businesses and you want to come to Mount Prospect, we will work with you to figure out how to get that done. Because when we do that, we get tax revenue, we can stay off your property taxes, right? That's what I'm about. That's why we're down 11% in the last 2 years. And I'd like to see it even further down. Wouldn't it be great to be like Schaumburg used to be and have no property tax because they had so much development? No, it's a much bigger town, but so much development. That would be a goal of mine.
Tricia?
So I'll say this. The chamber and the village are not at odds. We have a great working relationship with the village, and we work regularly with the Economic Development Department on things related to business. What I will say, in the 4 years that our mayor has been in office, I have never once gotten a phone call in my capacity as president of the chamber to say, hey, Tricia, how can we help the small business community? What are you hearing? What is it that they need to make sure their business succeeds? Okay, so that is the type of tone setting we're talking about. It makes a huge difference when we can't have that kind of dynamic. And so that sort of collaborative partnership is what we're missing. There is a tendency in this village, I think, to pick winners and losers. It's not the village government's job to do that. Our job is to set an even playing field. Our job is to call balls and strikes. We're not here to be on the dance floor. We're not here to be on the field and participate in this. And so we need to be able to foster that collaborative environment with everyone, and frankly, keep some of the emotional decision-making out of it.
I have to follow up on that. Because again, that is not portraying how this relationship has gone. If you read the papers, the last couple of years, the chamber has been all over the village in a negative way, constantly jamming on the village. You call that collaborative? I don't call it collaborative. I think a model like the DMA, the Downtown Merchants Association, what an incredible organization that is. And I would encourage everybody to turn out to their meetings. It's incredible. And nobody's getting paid or anything like that. They just come together to promote the downtown. And we could have that. I'm sure they do have some association at Randers. We can have it ultimately on the south side. Why not, right? It can be regional. But don't tell me that the chamber has been collaborating with the village. They've been all over us since they lost the block party, which they were taking the village to the cleaners relative to the money. But, and that upset them in a big way.
Thank you, Paul. Tricia?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, and there's a lot that's inaccurate in that statement. So the first thing I will say regarding I want to make it very clear. The chamber is a separate nonprofit organization. It is not in any way affiliated with the village. There's no sort of official arm of the village. I want to make that clear, but I understand that he's speaking to my leadership. Second, the village currently does not provide the chamber with any financial support directly from the taxpayer. And the reason that's the case is because I put an end to that. Under the mayor's leadership, the prior Chamber of Commerce had an open blank check from this village. And the money and the financial filings are all public, and they can all be examined by the public if they would like to. When I came in, I identified the problem. I made an incredibly difficult decision to lay off staff of the organization, close our doors, and this was in 2020. This was when the business community needed a working chamber more than ever, all right? We then worked with the village to relaunch the block party in 2021, and so when the mayor talks about taking away the block party, it's unfortunate because it was taken away from the chamber at a time when we were contributing more financial support for that event than we ever had prior to 2020. I will also say this. I only use these two organizations for illustrative purposes. There are two organizations in this town that throw large-scale festivals other than the chamber. And if we were to remove an event from either of them, all of them would have to make very serious they would have to take a really hard look at their financials and what they would be able to continue to do for the community. And so that's what happened here. To suggest that, we're ranting about something is not accurate. On the block party note, what I will say is this, and I encourage the taxpayers to look at it. Once the block party was removed from the Mount Prospect Chamber and we are no longer involved in it, the village has doubled its cost. It is now facing a First Amendment lawsuit from its own fire union because they denied them a booth to raise money for charity. They've increased all of the risk because they take on all the liquor liability and all the risk that's inherent with a large-scale festival. And they now have staff that is soliciting sponsorship dollars. And if you were to look at that sponsorship list, they're all companies that get some sort of government benefit, all right? A contract or, something to that effect. So if we want to talk about leadership, if we want to talk about, what reflection that may be on me, I do highly encourage folks to take a closer look at what the result was there.
I never once mentioned her name. I mentioned the chamber. And it's amazing that this person, I guess, identifies and says she is the chamber. She is a board. So, I will just tell you that with the block party, we just got tired of it because you probably have all been to various events. When the village gets involved, we have to provide service, we have to provide trucks, we have to provide people, we provide all these things at no cost, right? And then the chamber walked away with the profits. And Mr. Cassidy and the board just got tired of it. It's like, we're not getting anything back our way. And I don't want to get down into the weeds, but in terms of insurance, there was one block party, no insurance was in place. We had to force place that quickly to make sure it was covered. But all of that being said, I'm telling you, the chamber is an independent organization. Obviously it is. They're independent of the village, but it's definitely adversarial. And all you need to do is go back and search on the Mount Prospect Journal and the Daily Herald, and you can see the ranting that was going on out there for a couple of years, constantly coming at us. So, unfortunately, some of what you're hearing is just not exactly true.
Let's, if we may, just for time, because there's
Sure.
plenty of questions.
Sure.
30 seconds for each of you, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Well, I just want to correct something that the mayor said. The events were insured, and all of that, again, is public record, and everyone on the board has confirmation of that. I am not the chamber. He's absolutely right. We do have a board, and when a lot of the tough decisions that were being made about hiring and firing and the like, we had the village's support on those decisions. The village has a board seat on our board, and unfortunately, not a lot of questions were asked when there was a blank check, but certainly we are all doing this in collaboration.
Thank you, Tricia. Paul?
Nothing more to say, thank you.
Okay. Well, I think I'm going to go from the frying pan into the fire here.
All right, let's
Next
do it.
question.
Let's do it.
But actually, I have to, up front, this question came in from a resident of the community. It was sent into the Journal. It's a fair question, I think. Tricia, we're going to let you answer this one first. As a gay couple raising a son in Mount Prospect, we found the violent crimes committed against 2 gay men last summer appalling. The response by the various departments in the village was also disappointing. What can Mount Prospect do to better prevent situations like this from happening and communicate effectively to residents to keep our LGBTQ plus community safe? And do you think the safety of gay men was compromised by not releasing the teen mob action to the public last year?
Well, I thank that resident for that question, and I would agree. I think that it was incredibly unfortunate that at the most basic level, there was not a single statement released from a single village official condemning the treatment of the LGBT community. So if we want to talk about diversity and we can't issue a statement to our residents that shows we're a welcoming community, we want everyone to feel safe here, that's a problem. And this isn't an isolated incident. This time last year, around the same time that the public found out about this occurrence, there was some graffiti with racial slurs that were found near Weller Creek. And still there was no basic statement put forward condemning the language that was used or condemning that act. If anything, I recall a trustee moving forward with a letter to the editor condemning racism and getting commented or was talked down to on this dais for bringing those comments forward. So, I absolutely agree. I think we could do a better job on some of the reporting that may come out, but I wholeheartedly do want to recognize that sometimes all that information can't be released to the public. I value the police department's judgment on some of that, and I recognize that. But to not have a statement come forward condemning that act was quite unfortunate.
Thank you, Tricia. Paul?
So when the police department is in an investigation, many times can't release information. There were minors involved. Even the victims one of the victims really didn't want that information out there. They were afraid. So, but I will tell you, I sat in multiple meetings with our police department and with our investigators, investigating the case. And it was very clear as to why that information didn't go out publicly. It wasn't ready to go out. And I'll tell you what, when my challenger says she values some of it, I value all of it. I value our police department's leadership's judgment. I value our investigators' judgment. And those judgments were made. And I'll live with that because I trust those guys. They know their jobs. And it wasn't ready. Plus, the state's attorney was involved with it as well. And it wasn't ready to come out. And so it didn't. We all think we're like junior, attorneys or junior investigators or whatever, and things should be let out. Well, when you do that, you can harm people and you can harm your case.
May I respond?
Sure.
The mayor's putting some words in my mouth. I absolutely agree with the mayor. I absolutely agree with the mayor. If the police department is coming forward and instructing the mayor and instructing the village manager that there's certain procedures that need to be placed, I absolutely understand that. But I don't believe you need the police department's permission or blessing to release a statement that condemns a violent act against the LGBT community. So that's number one. Number two, I'm an immigration attorney, like I've said. I know firsthand that community policing is a very sound, effective strategy to ensure that our community feels safe, is safe. It's a trust-building exercise. So when you are not able to, again, put out a statement that condemns violence against the LGBT community, we end up with a question like that. We have a resident who is sitting at home wondering if they can engage with their local government, if they feel welcome in this community. And I, as mayor, as a resident, I don't want anyone to have to feel that way.
I would agree, except I'm not an investigator. I'm not the chief of police. I don't have experience in this. They do. And they know when information should be released. And they made a decision, and I will stand behind our police department every day of the year.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Tricia. Okay, I'm going to go back to a couple of the questions that we had. By the way, I hear some comments, if people would be kind enough to kind of stay quiet. These are questions that were asked to the village trustees. What is the best way to balance concerns about downtown congestion and the need for economic development? And I think we asked Tricia first, so we'll start with Paul on that.
Oh. Well, downtown development has been off the charts, right? I mean, we've never seen development like this in the last 4 years, ever. We've had spurts of development. I'll tell you a story. About 2 years ago, the village manager called me up one morning. I live, right near the downtown. He says, go out on your front porch. I have an Andy Mayberry type front porch. Go out on your front porch and look up. 5 cranes in the air. We were lucky to have 1 crane in the air. We had 5 cranes. And you know what? In terms of parking, every one of those developments has internal parking for their residents. And we also have parking adjacent, not for the residents, but for the businesses that come in. So we just negotiated parking at St. Mark's in the off hours. We have a huge parking garage over behind Caputo's. Of course, we have our parking garage right here. Any new development that comes will have an element of parking. It's not going to, like the 111 East, it can't be surface parking. That would be a waste of the valuable resource, right? But there will be parking built into that development, I guarantee you. And that's one of the biggest factors whenever we approve a new business or a new building. It's always parking. We have parking ratios that we have to live to, and we live to them.
Thank you, Paul. Tricia.
Can you repeat the question?
Of course. What is the best way to balance concerns about downtown congestion and the need for economic development?
Okay, thank you. I would probably align myself with a lot of what the mayor said. So I agree. With development, you are going to have these challenges related to parking and congestion. I absolutely understand. And I do want to, if anyone missed last night's meeting, I do want to commend staff for the efforts they are making in our downtown to address parking to the extent that they can, whether it's restriping for additional stalls, whether it's, the St. Mark's lease that was referenced. Those are all proactive solutions, and I commend them for it. I do think there's room for improvement a little bit on enforcement. There are a lot of business owners in town who have their employees who park and take up stalls for several hours at a time, so perhaps we can see an increase in enforcement. I'm also looking to look at the parking issue in a more comprehensive way. I do feel sometimes we do things a little bit piecemeal where we, try to attack a problem one thing at a time. So we have a lot of separate parking share agreements. I believe one with Chase, I believe one with the old Bussy Flowers building. We're kind of trying to figure out how to navigate this with the additional stalls and infrastructure improvements. I just think we can be a little bit more broader and comprehensive about it, but I would agree for the most part with the mayor.
Can I just say, and this
Sure.
isn't in rebuttal necessarily, when you have development, it's a little bit of a push-pull, right? You get new restaurants and you don't know how successful everything is, then people start coming, which is great. And then, okay, how do we figure this out? And with all due respect, I'm actually the one who said, let's go to St. Mark's. I actually sat down with them and said, could we use your parking in the off hours? And we'll pay you for that. And the village worked it out. Because we saw the challenge that was going to come as these new restaurants started to open, right? And you don't want to have, tons of surface parking and then, you don't get the restaurants and you don't get the activity. So it's a push-pull. And I wouldn't say it's piecemeal, it's as you go, and it's also very localized. Our town, unfortunately, our downtown, is split by large roads, right? So you have a quadrant over there and a quadrant over here, and of course, a small triangle, we talked about that last night, and then over on Prospect and others. And they all have their own specific parking needs. You can't tell somebody that's gonna go to Lady Dahlia, park in the parking garage, it's too far to walk, they won't do it, right? But you figure it out by the quadrants, I think you have it made. And I think we're doing a good job. And as my challenger said, we're looking at that on a comprehensive basis, but also on a localized basis.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, we have two more questions, and then we're going to ask you for your closing remarks. Let's see, that was Paul, I believe, that got asked that question. So, Tricia, what has the village done to streamline and make more transparent the process for citizens to apply for and to serve on a village committee or commission?
Having just been removed from a commission, I may not be the best person to ask for that. But what I will say is, the boards and commissions spot is something that comes up at every election. We need to broaden our recruitment for boards and commissions. We need to diversify our boards and commissions. I haven't really seen a lot of cognitive steps to make that happen. So something as simple as posting, procedures on our website in a very easily accessible way, posting or recruiting some of this on our social media, thinking a little bit, just tad bit outside the box there, I think can help a lot. I think a lot of folks don't always know what each commission does. So, perhaps putting something out there on a regular basis that says, this is, what this commission does, or this is what this commission does. When I was on the Finance Commission, we would have these joint workshops with the board 3 or 4 times a year, and we had a lot of residents who would come forward and say, that's the first time I've ever, seen what a Finance Commission does. I'm not exactly sure what they do. So, utilizing some of those very basic tools about kind of getting out what the roles of these boards and commissions are, I think can go a long way.
Thank you, Tricia. Paul?
So when I became mayor, I committed to bringing more diversity to the commissions and the boards as the opportunities presented. Now, there was a group of people that would have had me to remove people that had been serving honorably and faithfully on our commissions for a number of years. and I'm just going to say it this way, just because they were older white people, white men. And I said I would not do that. Not when they've been serving our village for all these years in such an honorable way. And they're people we know. And they give a lot of time. So I said, no, I won't do that. But what I will do is, positions open, I will look for diverse candidates. What does diverse mean? Women, more women on our commissions, more people of color. Whatever diversity means, I have looked for people. When I'm out in the community every day, I talk to people all the time. And I ask people, multicultural, people who come from different countries of origin, because I want to be careful what I say. I ask them, did you ever consider serving on a board or a commission? I promise to do that. And if you look, first off, all of our, I think every board or commission is full except special events. I think there's 2 openings there. Every other one is full. Oh, let me clarify one last thing. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to slow down here. I make sure that our commissions and boards are full so that we get good decisions coming off the boards and commissions. And I'm also living up to that promise that I made.
Thank you, Paul. Tricia?
I just want to point out some information I pulled from our website. Again, having served on the Finance Commission, there was a very long time where I was the only person of color on a single board of a commission. And certainly we've made, changes, and there are far more, much more representation on boards and commissions today than perhaps a few years back, but we have a while to go. 75% of our boards and commissions are comprised of men. And of the 13 women that are serving on boards and commissions, 7 of them are on the Special Events Commission. So we have very important commissions that are bringing advisory opinions forward to the board about tax policy, planning and zoning, our police and fire, that could use additional representation. That diverse perspective is going to lend far more informed decision-making for our board. And I will just say, because I just saw these 2 ladies here, I know they're on the Special Events Commission, and I absolutely commend your work. But we could certainly do better.
Okay, Paul?
It sounds like my challenger doesn't think special events is all that important. I think it's very important. And if you roll the clock back, I would venture a guess that 100% of the boards and commissions were populated by men, because it was a different time. We're not in those times anymore. It's changing, and absolutely. And I made a commitment, and you heard me. I made a commitment to diversify our boards and commissions as I was able to do so, and I've been living up to that, and I will continue to live up to that. I want to clarify one thing, because a lot of charged words get used, right? A lot of charged words. My challenger said she was removed. No, she wasn't removed. The board made a decision based on the ethics ordinance that if you have a spouse on the village board, you can't serve on a commission. And that was a vote taken by the board. I didn't do it. The board decided, and that's the way it was. And unfortunately, I had to talk to Ms. Trushy and tell her that, unfortunately, she can't serve. And she knew this already, right? I was very respectful about it. But I didn't make that decision. The board made that decision. The other thing, I'm going to say one last thing. The word transparency gets thrown around all the time. And you want to talk about a charged word? This village is incredibly transparent. If you want to serve on a board or commission, go on our website. All 11 boards and commissions are there. You can fill out an application. We will respond to it as soon as we get it. And I myself and others will interview you. It's not really an interview. It's more like, hey, if you're willing to volunteer and you have the qualifications, we'd love to have you.
Thank you, Paul. Tricia, we're going to give you equal time. So if you have something to say, feel free to say it.
Well,
thank you, Paul.
Regarding the comment made about events, what I will say, most residents who I've met usually have seen me for the first time because I'm wearing sneakers and I'm sweaty and I'm slinging beer in a beer tent, because I am on various committees to plan a lot of our events. The downtown movie nights, the downtown trick or treat, those are all events that I spearheaded and brought to the community, all right? So that's number one. I want to make that very clear. We're very community-minded. We're very fortunate to have a very dedicated group of volunteers here. He alluded to the ethics ordinance as part of his answer, and I don't know if there's time for us to discuss that because there's a lot that could be discussed on it. I don't believe that that exercise of, removing or not reappointing me to the commission had anything necessarily to do with the ethics of it at all. I think that we need to recognize that in 2025, the definition of immediate family isn't just spouse and dependent child. It's unfortunate my 6-year-old can't join a commission, but that is something that, once again, under this guise of ethics, we moved forward with a policy that makes it that much more restrictive. The mayor just mentioned a few minutes ago, long-term serving volunteers who are on boards and commissions and valuing that experience. We've made it that much harder.
Thank you, Tricia.
I just have to follow up one time. I know we're getting late, but I got to follow up one more time. The strengthening of the ethics ordinance came out of strategic planning. We gave we set the policies up here, right? And through strategic planning, we set the goals. We give those to Mr. Cassidy and his leadership team. They carry them out. And we gave him a very pointed task. We want to strengthen the ethics ordinance. And one of our trustees, who will remain nameless, because I don't want to create any issue, he led the charge. He said, we need to strengthen this. Now, what he did, though, was provide us with, he cobbled together an ordinance that just happened to fit his needs and his family's needs. I don't think that was right. We don't write ordinances. We have people on staff that write ordinances, and we have attorneys. So an ordinance was written, and it was reviewed by this board, and it was approved by this board. Nobody targeted anybody. Nobody did anything like that. The person may feel that way, but that's not what happened. We had open discussion, very open discussion, and a lot of it, and we came to a decision.
Trish? Yeah.
Sure. I'll reserve my comments to the policy portion of the ethics ordinance. The board certainly had an opportunity to address ethics, but I want to make it very clear for residents what is not in the ethics ordinance, okay? It doesn't have any provision on gift restrictions. It has no provision on harassment, political activity, official misconduct, whistleblower protection, post-employment regulations. These are concepts, when we think about ethics for elected officials, for village staff, these are all things we expect to see in an ethics code. This current ethics ordinance does not do that at all. And it wasn't even discussed during board discussion. The mayor makes comment about a draft piece of legislation. The board's literal responsibility is legislative authority. So I would hope that we are utilizing the resources of the village board that are up there, whether they're attorneys, whether they're realtors, whatever they may be, to help that legislative process. And having reviewed that ordinance, I will say I don't think it was structured in the way that the mayor thinks that it's structured. So I would encourage everyone to read a copy via FOIA.
Thank you, Tricia. Thank you,
I just
Paul.
have to make one comment. First off, I read that ordinance, and I read it over many times. I don't know what my challenger's talking about. The other thing I'm going to tell you, it's a living...
I think Richard Mayer has a great story for his next
he sure does.
article. So.
It's a living document, so if other things need to be added, they will be added, right? And that's, honestly, I didn't even think we needed to strengthen it because we already had a ton of things in our ordinances related to ethics. But the board felt we needed to, and we did, and it's the right thing. And if you're talking about employees, like employees and the ethics of them, they're covered separately under their under human resources and such. This ethics ordinance
Paul,
is for the board.
I'm sorry.
I know, Dennis, but it's for the board.
And I know it.
I know you know it.
I know.
I just finished my thought.
But I think we've already, where's Richard? The last question is already out. So, and that's okay. You know what, though? I'll tell you what you could do, if you like, Paul. is you could use, do we have 2 minutes each for closing? 2-minute closing if you want to address that issue in your closing remarks.
no, I'm done.
No, I'm saying we're going to have, the questions are done. We are going to give each candidate 2 minutes
I know that.
for closing remarks. And if you want to continue addressing that issue during your closing remarks, please feel
Okay.
free to do so.
So now we're getting 2 minutes?
2 minutes
Because
for
we were
closing
told we had 1
remarks.
minute. So
Yeah, 2 minutes.
I tailor my comments. When I'm told a minute, I tailor my comments.
No, I appreciate it.
So, so I'll wing part of it, and you'll hear my prepared comment, because I don't like to go over and have the timekeeper say,
Okay,
quiet.
okay.
So who's going first?
So I believe Tricia started at the beginning. This time, Paul, we're going to let you go first.
Oh, okay. So first off, I'd like to thank the Mount Prospect Journal for providing this opportunity to speak with all of you and everybody listening. As I stated in my opening, I am the uniquely qualified candidate for re-election as your mayor because of my deep experience and my professional background. The results produced during the last 4 years as I was mayor have been incredibly positive. Mount Prospect is on an upward trajectory of incredible growth and development, and because of that, your tax levy, the village's portion of your tax levy is down 11%, and village stickers have been eliminated permanently. That saves you over $200 a year. Our financial condition as a village, never been stronger, never. We have an emergency economic fund that we put in place to handle the unexpected when it comes along, and if you don't think unexpecteds come along, they come along. We funded that to the tune of $13.7 million. Now, it can't be just used for whatever. The board has to approve, and it's a very tight reason or purpose that it can be used. And I always start out my comments by saying citizen safety is priority one, and I believe that. We've increased sworn officers in the police force from 83 to 88. It's going to 90. Our firefighters, 72 to 81. Station 11 opened up, and now we have 4 district plans, so we have faster response. And I will tell you that I hold our first responders near and dear. And 2 weeks ago, one of my family members was brutally attacked. And you know why she's alive? Because our first responders responded and saved her life. Because we outfit them right, we have the resources they need, and they save your lives. They saved my life 16 years ago. I will never forget that. As your mayor, I will work hard to keep our village moving forward on a path of growth and prosperity. I am the proven leader who accomplished these goals. Think about the positive results that you've seen in the past 4 years. And when you go to cast your vote, I ask you to vote Hofert and keep our positive momentum going. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Tricia?
Thank you, Dennis. I want to once again thank the Journal and Topics for hosting this debate tonight. I also want to thank Mayor Hofert for his time, and I certainly am very glad to hear that his family is safe, and I would not doubt exactly what he said about our police and fire. The choice in this election is very clear. Local government is not a one-size-fits model, and relying on the same governance approach for 3 decades is not preparing Mount Prospect for the future. We need to lean in, we need to adapt, and we need to lead with a bold vision to make sure Mount Prospect is ready for its next generation in the future. I'm running to be your mayor to bring generational change to this office. I'll bring collaborative leadership to this role, a forward-thinking perspective, and I can assure you that I will be a voice for all residents and businesses in this village. Now, I know we talked about a lot, and I know that we certainly just scratched the surface, so I encourage residents to visit my website, tricia4mp.com, to figure out a little bit more about my vision, and I also have some events coming up as well. And I ask you all humbly for your vote on April 1st to be the next mayor for Mount Prospect. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've been moderating these debates, I don't know, maybe 8 years. I've said I've been moderating these debates for probably a good 8 years. And I will tell you, this was the most informative, open discussions that we've had, not only for the mayors, but for the trustees and for the school district. And thank you Thank you for your open communications. They're really appreciated. I want to give you
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay, Josh, what do you think? Let me go up there and say nice to both of them. Thank you.